Polypede Woods here, coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1121 entitled The Ebb and Flow of the Ages. So, no cover story this week because One Piece is on the cover of Jump. And it's a beautiful cover. Love it. It's celebrating the 27th anniversary of One Piece. Luffy's looking fly. He's got his sunglasses. He looks great. He's got this orange and black suit. All these adornments on the suit. Got the straw hat tie clip. He looks great. He looks great. Got Nami, Chopper, and Usopp in the back. Usopp looking clean in his purple getup. Nami sporting a similar dress to how she wore in Whole Cake Island, the red one. Looks fantastic. Happy 27th anniversary, One Piece. I will say this, there is a break next week, but then the following week, there won't be a break, but then the week after that, there will be a break. So it goes, this chapter, break, 1122, and then a break. So that's how it is. And we are treated to a color spread of Nami, which I think this pairs well with the one that we got of Robin a few weeks ago, I believe. The one where she's playing chess. This is cool because this is a fun summertime one. Nami is looking very hot, superimposed over everyone, and all the other Straw Hats are miniaturized, as they were in a couple of color spreads before where Nami's gigantic. And what's funny too is Oda's art habits rear their head again, as I like how Jinbei's head is just popping out between her thigh and arm, so he doesn't have to draw that intricate robe that Jinbei always wears. It's so funny that the pun about Jinbei is that he's a Jinbei, a whale shark, wearing a Jinbei, which is a robe. I find that very funny because Oda never seems to want to draw the robe. I just find that very interesting every time, especially in these color spreads. If there's a way to avoid drawing Jinbei, Oda often takes it, I find. And that's just an observation from me. I like Frankie over here between her legs. And he's riding this like weird chicken thing with this spiked neck brace. It looks like a big pool toy. Very cool, very fun. I like how Robin's in the crux of her arm with some ice cream along with Chopper. That's cute. This is a very risque outfit, but I love it. Always put best girl first. I agree with that sentimentality. The marker work is immaculate, by the way. I love the marker work. It is incredible. And I like how she's holding the ice cream that Luffy is also on. Very cool. Very neat. Great color spread. But moving into the chapter, Saturn, as we left off in 1120, was perched on the giant ship. The giants are batting him back. And this reminds me, I'll just cut right to the chase. Someone asked me a while ago, last week, if I had any thoughts on what would happen in 1121 regarding Saturn. And I had said, and shout out to the person who left this comment, I'll put it up on screen. And I had said, I think Bonnie's going to go back into Gear 5th and hit Saturn in the face along with Luffy in a big team attack. And my golly, that's exactly what happened. Because as Saturn goes off to the offensive, Luffy and the giants bat back his poisonous legs. Bonnie gets back into Gear 5th. The message goes as Vegapunk is rearing up to inspire everyone again to search for the One Piece. But as he's doing that, and we'll get back to that face punching in a minute, but as he's doing that, there are some very interesting shots I would just like to go over. So he says, we know the weapons technology that sank the world's continents is still in use. That power is out there. And as he says that, we get a shot of Shirahoshi, who is Poseidon. We get a shot of Nefertiti D. Vivi, which is interesting. And then we pan over to Skypiea. And in the Skypiea shot, we see Conus, a Skypiean, Isa, a Shandarian, and then Wiper and the boys in the back, who are also Shandarians. Very interesting. We also see Nala the snake. That could be important, but we're not going to focus on the snake. It's just interesting that we have 2 of 4 winged races in this shot. Plus, Vivi being mentioned alongside Shirahoshi. If you remember, there have been many a theory. If you've been on the internet for any extended amount of time in One Piece spaces, there have been many a theory about Vivi possibly being an ancient weapon. That could be the case based on how she alone is being framed here alongside Shirahoshi, and neither Morgans or Wapol is with her in this moment. I just find that very interesting. Perhaps she is Pluton, because that's the going theory. She's Pluton or Uranus. Based on the shot that we get of Skypiea here, and based on who was the main antagonist of the Skypiea arc, I am more so leaning towards Uranus having something to do with some Sky Race person. Could be NL, very possible, because the Arc Maxim is a very weird vessel when you think about it. It's one of the few flying vessels in One Piece that have the capabilities with the power of NL's Rumble Fruit to destroy an island. He has destroyed a landmass. So I don't know, dog. That's kind of an interesting thing to think about. But moving on, as Vegapunk talks about how certain races of the world were persecuted and slaughtered, we get a flash to Kuma revealing that he was a buccaneer, and how Vegapunk says there's something special about his blood. And then too, as the flashback is going, we get a shot of present day Kuma, whom I think is still alive here, but I've said this many times, he might be on his way out in this chapter based on what happens later, but we'll get to that. Following that, right under the flashback about Kuma revealing himself to be a buccaneer, we have Marco back in Fink's Island reflecting on Whitebeard, talking about Lunarians potentially, because he says back then there was a kingdom of gods up there, talking about the Red Line. Now, I have said this in the past, back when we didn't know exactly what Kuma's race was called, and this comes up in the chapter in which Kuma is sworn in as a warlord. But it's very funny that both Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, and Bartholomew Kuma look the same. I originally called them the Big Chin Tribe, and I made that video when Bonnie first revealed that Kuma was a part of a different people. I said that. I'll link that somewhere around here. But it's just funny to me because they're doing it again, and again, my alert hat is going off, and I'm starting to think that, yeah, Whitebeard most likely was a buccaneer, because the similarities are just too eerie. The face shape looks the same. They got the same sort of chin. There's also a weird hair thing about both of them. You have Whitebeard's big crescent moon mustache, and then you have Kuma's bed head that just happens to form in the shape of bear ears. That's weird. And then if you do put two and two together, there is a real world bear, which is the Asian black bear that's sometimes referred to as a moon bear. And like I said, it's a black bear with a sort of weird white crescent-like shape on its chest. So I don't know, man. Whitebeard is a crescent moon and Kuma is a bear. And I believe Ursa Major and Ursa Minor are constellations. So there are some relations to bears and the stars, or bears and the moon, you could say. But it's interesting that they're both the same size. They both have the same build roughly, and they both have weird things going on with their hair. Whitebeard and his facial hair, Kuma and the hair on his head. Just saying. But moving on. Of course, then we get a shot of King, and King is somewhere, also known as Albert. He's somewhere. We don't know where he is, but he's reflecting on what his men said to him when his race was revealed during the Zoro fight in Wano. That's not a big deal. We kind of know that, but we are at 3 out of the 4 winged races now. We saw Skypeans, we saw Shandurians, and now we have a Lunarian. All we need is a Birkin. I wonder if we're going to see a Birkin in this chapter. Wink, wink. We cut over to Pudding, who's right next to him, and she's reflecting on her childhood and being a 3-Eye Tribe member. We still don't know about them, but that's a thing because, of course, they have a special ability as they can read poneglyphs. We don't know what that entails of or how that ability came about, but that's something to think about. And of course, we know she's in Blackbeard's hostage at the moment. But cutting back, Bonnie goes full Nika and goes on the offensive against Saturn. Saturn retaliates, calls her a fool for copying something she can't comprehend. Luffy says, enough of this garbage, swats those big poisonous legs away. And then, like I've been saying all this time, Bonnie then reflects on the memories given to her by her father, thanks to the powers of the pawpaw fruit. And she just takes in how mercilessly evil Saturn has been towards Kuma, how he's been towards Guinea, and how all of this has been set in motion to ruin her life, where she just wanted to live with her mother and father. During this revelation, Kizaru is on the ground because he has had enough and he has clocked out for the evening. I do not blame him. Sentomaru is badly injured and is also sitting on the ground. I'm glad they didn't kill each other, by the way, because that's just awful. It really is. But all of this crying and all of this misery comes together in a stretched out elephant gun punch as Saturn can only sit there in awe as he gets stared down by a giant Nika Luffy with hockeyed up hands and a giant hockeyed up fist from Bonnie being revved up. Cutting back to his message, we have Iceberg back in Water 7. That's not important. We see Caesar and Judge arguing. That's not important. We go to Witheria and when we see Harudes, that's important. Do you know what Harudes is? Harudes is a Birkin. I have often thought that he was probably the deity of Burka at some point, because all the deities, as we know, of the sky races, their king, so to speak, don't have wings, including NL. He didn't have wings. So that's very interesting. I think for the first time in forever, I don't think this has ever happened, but every member from every winged race is in one chapter. We have a Skypian, we have several Shandurians, we have a Lunarian, and now we have a Birkin. Isn't that interesting? I wonder what that means. Vegapunk's speech goes on, saying how Roger died 25 years ago and it's been 2 years since Whitebeard's death, and how the passing of legends brings in a new age. And then the liberating Nika punch goes off. Bonnie's perfected elephant gun slams into Saturn in spectacular fashion. She's made of rubber. How did that happen? Yo ho ho, she believed in Nika. Bam! That spider is getting torn up, assisted by several giant Gatling Nika punches from Luffy. My goodness. And I guess, too, you can say this is the first attack Luffy has been involved in which it involves Nika directly. So I don't know what to make about that. That's very interesting. Is he coming around to the idea? Maybe, maybe not, but it's just kind of a funny thing to point out. Moving on, though, Saturn is torn to bits. I mean, torn to bits. There are holes in him. She and he punched him worse than Kuma ever did. He is in bits and pieces, and he is falling into the ocean. Now, funny thing about the ocean in the panel of which we see him falling into is that the ocean isn't ebbing and flowing in these big swelling mounds, right? So it's just regular water. So the water being rubber isn't going to save him here. Saturn is in trouble. He can probably get himself out of it because he can probably teleport out, but I don't know. That is if he's a Dofur user, which we're going to find that out sooner or later. I err on the Occam's razor side of the argument, saying that all the Gorosei are Dofur users. I don't think we're going to introduce a new power system this late in the game. It would make sense that they're older than Dofur classification, and of course, their powers aren't going to be put in any book unless they were put in a version of the Dofur Encyclopedia without their consent or before they got their abilities. That's the only way I can see that there is a text out there classifying what they are actually able to do. So it's up in the air, but that's the only way I can see it. If there's a variant of the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia that talks about Nika, but then also talks about their powers. And then we'll get like proper naming schemes of what they're actually called. So like with him right here, of course, he would be the spider fruit, mythical model Gyuki. The others, of course, Nostjiro would be a horse fruit. Most likely Mars would be a bird fruit. Don't know about Jupiter. I don't know if he'd be classified as a bug fruit or he is just a worm fruit. I don't know about that one. That's a little weird. Have never had a pig devil fruit, so I don't even know how you would describe Warcree. Pig fruit model Fangji. It's weird we never had a pig fruit before. That's just odd thinking about it. But yeah, no. Saturn falls into the ocean, and there's a very important plot point that I'd like to bring up after we finish the chapter. But moving on, Bonnie and Luffy send Saturn flying into the ocean, and everyone cheers. Here we have the death of Kuma. Kuma has a little smirk on his face. I think that's it. I think that's it right there. I know I've called it before. I've cried wolf before, but narratively, this right here makes the most sense. The villain that has plagued Kuma his entire life and plagued all of his loved ones has been mercilessly beaten to death by his daughter and by his hero. And he got a front row seat to that happening. This is a beautiful occasion for Kuma. Shine on, sir. Shine on. I think that's it, though. This would be the most fitting end for him right here. And that's okay. As that happens, however, the Sunny is crashing down as Brocky and Dory notice it. But Jinbei's out the helm. We're going to be all right. If Jinbei flubs this, though, oh my word, no. Could you imagine? No way, no way, no way. I kid. But Vegapunk continues saying that people who often seek out the truth are often oppressed. And it's only those who are oppressed are going to be the ones who stand up to find the truth and set things in motion. And then we have a flash to Roger. And he says, my treasure is yours to find. Everything is right there where I left it. Or, if you're a 4Kids fan, my treasure is yours for the taking. I left it all in that one place. Very nostalgic. I'm tearing up, actually. Oh my God. It's good, bruh. Nah. This brings back memories, bruh. Back in 2007, watching this stuff on the Fox box, bro, when you have the terrible 4Kids dub. Oh, man. Nah, it's good. It's good. But continuing. Rayleigh is knocked out at the bar because he's drunken himself to sleep. And we get a flash to all the pirate bases of our 4 Yonko, excluding Luffy, of course. The pirate island shown up, Hachinosu, after freshly being cracked by one Monkey D. Garp, because that skull ain't looking too good. But the pirates of the pirate island are itching for the Commodore to come back. So we don't know where Blackbeard is now, which is interesting. We know he's somewhere listening to the message. We don't know where. But the Blackbeard pirates are going to be a very interesting topic in a moment. But first, we see the Red Force, and Shanks too has drunken himself into a stupor. Very funny, especially after spanking Kid and having Brocky and Dory sink his ship with not a care to be found. Very funny. And now we have Emperor Buggy's base, Empty Bluffs Island. And the entire island is in an uproar because they all know Buggy's ties to Roger. And now the fools, Mihawk and Crocodile, are now indebted into this organization, and they will never be in charge. Never, ever, ever, never. I think with these two mean mugging off to the side, which is very uncharacteristic of Mihawk to do. He's usually stone-faced in everything. This is it. They know. They know they're in deep. They know they have no choice. Crocodile's so mad. I love it. That's it, though. Right here is it. Ellipses. They have nothing to say because they know they're in for it. They're going to challenge all of them. That's it. I need you to understand how it is for them. No big plans, no schemes. You're a legit pirate crew now. You listen to this clown now. That's it. People want to say, oh, Mihawk's going to betray Buggy. No, you don't get it. He's in there. He's in there for real. He's going to be Zoro. There goes Zoro and Sanji right there, boys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you think otherwise. There it is right there. There's no escaping it. Moving on, though, the Marines too want to go find the One Piece, but someone reminds them that they need to protect the common people. because you're not pirates. You don't have fun. You have responsibilities. My goodness, the new naval base looks like Mickey D's. That's funny. Anyway, but yeah, as Vegapunk says, there's no stopping this now. Because we have the third exclamation of the One Piece being the theme of the series, the thing that you have to find, which I have to say, bravo to Oda, because after almost 30 years of writing this thing, despite all the turns and curves we have made from going from 17th century technology to cyborgs to genetic mutants to angel people and all this rigmarole, the treasure has remained the most important thing, and that's beautiful. Despite all the fluff, despite all the world building, the treasure is still important, and now it's on a world stage in terms of importance, and that's the best. It's simply the best. It simply is. And as Vegapunk says, the fate of this world will be decided by whomever finds it. And we see our four Yonko: Red Hair Shanks, Monkey D. Luffy, Blackbeard, also known as Marchie D. Teach, and Buggy the Clown. And Buggy is snotting and tearing up because he has the romance of adventure in his heart, baby. It's in there. You can see it in his eyes. I love it. Oh, I'm getting chills, bro. I love Buggy excited. I love Buggy when he's excited. It's great. It's funny, too, that both Buggy and Blackbeard are wearing bandanas and big pirate hats. I find that funny. Whereas Luffy, the man who's actually named after a hat, is not wearing a hat, and neither is Shanks. That's funny. It's funny. It's funny. But under them, we get other little snippets of other important characters. And my goodness, we're up to 3 Shankses, boys. We got the red hair Shanks, we have Figure and Garland, and then we have yet another Shanks, it seems. Yet another Shanks, because we see a man holding a sword that looks like Griffin because it has a cutlass-like shape with that weird handle bit. So yeah, it looks like Griffin, which makes me think, is Griffin like a celestial dragon sword or like a holy knight's blade of some sort? Because it's real weird that Figure and Garland, if I recall, also had one. And now this new character, Shanks number 3, also has this. What's also funny is that, if you don't know, in jewelry, the part that your finger goes through on a ring is called a shank. And Shanks served on Roger's crew, right? So, in terms of metals, you have gold, silver, and bronze. And we have gold, Roger, silver's Rayleigh, and copper, Gabon. So we have 3 precious metals that can be made into rings. So it's funny that now we potentially have 3 Shankses to make those rings out of, or 3 Shanks that could be made of those precious metals, I should say. So perhaps, with that being said, Golden Age Shanks could be our Shanks, Silver Age Shanks could be this new Shanks, and then Bronze Age Shanks, when things are starting to kick off, could be Figure and Garland. That's a little tiny theory. Probably gonna put that in another video, but I just wanted to bring that up. Other characters that we see in this collage are Emu. We have Monkey D. Dragon, who is looking east again, as he's known to do. We have Desk Chan, also known as Akinu, also known as Sakazuki, chomping on his cigar as he's wont to do. We have Kuzan, which is weird, the 10th Titanic captain of the Blackbeard Pirates. Weird that he would be here. We have Kobe, of course, because Kobe has replaced Smoker as an important character as he's not in his collage. Therefore, he does not matter, and I will not hear any retorting arguments to the matter, because, come on, bro. Come on. If you were important, you'd be here, but you ain't. I don't know what to tell you, bro. If he was important, if he was Luffy's Monkey D. Garp, he'd be here. But he ain't. It's Kobe. As we started is how we shall end. We started with Kobe, we're ending with Kobe. Smoker don't matter. I'm sorry, brothers. That's how it is. And then we see Sabo. I love that we see Sabo because I am rooting for him to replace Dragon because, ooh-wee, he is becoming bigger than Dragon by the second. Now, going back to that Blackbeard stuff I promised you. You know what's really funny about Saturn? He was touched by Katharina Devon. Now, Katharina Devon has the Dog Fruit Model 9-tailed Fox, or QB. And we know from her power debut that she can copy people. She can copy people very, very well. Unlike Mr. 2 or the Garb Fruit, she's not making weird approximations. She's copying people for real. She can't copy abilities, but she can copy clothing and physical attributes. So the entire appearance. And it's very interesting that we get the first example of this with Absalom, someone who has went under many cosmic surgery and has turned himself into a weird lion man, right? So she copied all of that plus what he was wearing. So that shows you that her power is above Mr. 2's or Kinemon's garb fruit, right? Funny thing about Mr. 2, Mr. 2 can only copy the body, and he was only limited to what he touched. What do I mean by this? Well, Mr. 2 copied several members of the Straw Hat crew, one of them being Chopper. And no one talks about this. Chopper's the weird one because he technically copied an animal. Chopper's a gray area because he's technically a animal human because he's a reindeer that ate the human fruit. So technically, Bon Clay copied a person, but also copied an animal. And in doing that, he only copied the form that Chopper was in at the time, which was his hybrid state, right? With that being said, what if in Katharina Devon copying Saturn, what if it's a real good deep fake? What do I mean by that? What if, say, that Blackbeard wants a certain individual from Egghead Island, namely York? What if, seeing as how Saturn is out of the picture, Katharina Devon poses as Saturn in his normal state and convinces York to go with her? What I mean by this is, what if when Katharina Devon copies someone, she really copies someone, meaning that even though she touched Saturn in his hybrid state, she copied all of him, meaning that even though she doesn't have any of his abilities, she could have how his hybrid state looks, how supposedly his full beast form looks, and how his regular form looks. Now, if we want to take this even a step deeper, what if it's a deep fake in which she gets a copy of all of Saturn's memories? What if the dog fruit model 9-tailed fox allows you to copy a person wholesale? Because it's really weird that she knew how to act like Absalom to give Moria false hope during her power debut. So maybe she knew that Absalom was a pervert and liked to be in the company of a lot of women. Maybe she knew that, and that was all a plot. Maybe. I don't know. But if that's true, that's going to make her using Saturn's visage going forward very, very important, especially if Saturn is dead. Because seeing as how he was the first one to reveal himself and the first one to show us all his powers, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not dead, he's out of commission. He's going to be out of commission for a very long time. Because so far, he looks like he's gotten it the worst, especially seeing as how he's about to fall into the ocean in bits and pieces. Don't know, but I find that fascinating. So, if Katharina Devon's power is as good as I think it is, Blackbeard is a serious threat because her power could be the best cloning ability in the series. And I wouldn't really doubt it because so far, there are no downsides because she didn't have to touch a particular side of a person's face and then touch her own face. She doesn't have to do any of that. All she did was touch Saturn's spider leg. And if it's that simple, we are in for some very interesting plots moving forward, I gotta tell you. But with that being said, this was an excellent chapter, a great chapter, but I also think this is probably the end of Vegapunk's message because I don't know what else could be said. But that being said, thank you for watching and giving me your thoughts. I will provide you with content as I always do during break weeks. But yeah, great chapter, excellent chapter. Paula Pete Works here, coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1122 entitled The Time Is at Hand. So, the magazine is on break after this week. This is also the final week of the manga series known as My Hero Academia. It finishes this week. Congrats to Horikoshi. Oh boy, it's been a ride. It's been going for 10 years. That's insane. And in the author notes, Oda is congratulating Horikoshi on completing My Hero Academia, which has been running for 10 years. I did not know that. My goodness, how the time flies. Because I remember when that first got started and I read the first chapter, and I remember being really enthralled by All Might. I did not really keep up with it that much. I know my co-host on the Rose Skull podcast, Zach, really does like it. So yeah, I mean, shout out to Horikoshi. You did finish it up, bruh. I can't say how well received it's been, but I'm glad he did at least finish. With that being said, that brings us to the art request. Oda redraws Smoker from some fan art Horikoshi sent in 22 years ago. W-Mans. The sad part, and I found this out on Reddit, but the sad part is that in the whole 10 years that My Hero Academia has been running, Smoker has not been relevant. The last time Smoker was even remotely relevant, he was getting his smoky behind beat down in the dirt by Virgo, and then he was used as a couch by Doflamingo with his infamous butt hockey. That's not totally canon, but that's just a funny way to think that he was using hockey on his butt to seal Smoker to the ground, and then of course Kuzan comes in to save Smoker, yada yada. But that's incredible. What's also very funny, and this is sad, we talk about this on the Rose Skull podcast a lot, I talked about it in my videos, but what's sad and funny about Smoker is that when the series first starts, right, and you're in Logtown, you think that Smoker is going to be the Zenigata to Luffy's Lupin III. You think he's going to chase him all across the world. In the chapter in which Smoker gets referenced, thanks to Horikoshi liking him as a character, I think this is his favorite character, Kobe has a flashback of when he and Luffy met on Alvida's ship. And it is in this chapter where he declares, I have to stop you from achieving your dream. So in this chapter, no holds barred, no shenanigans. Kobe becomes the Zenigata. Kobe replaces Smoker for real in this chapter. The chapter before My Hero Academia goes away. That's crazy, bruh. That is devious work. Oh my god. Oh, I'm so sorry, Horikoshi. Oh no. Smoker is a fraud, bruh. I got a short about that coming up soon on the channel. Stay tuned, because there's some funny stuff about him I found. But man, Kobe is chilling with his wife and I guess his brother-in-arms, Prince Groose, in the hospital bed. And that's what he says this after reminiscing about Luffy. So we're done. We're actually done. There is no coming back from this, brother. Smoker is washed. He's out with the laundry, bro. I apologize. I am so sorry. But man, I gotta tell you, even when I was a child watching One Piece for the first time on the Fox box, I thought Smoker, who was called Chaser at the time because 4Kids editing and censoring and whatnot, but I thought he was the coolest thing in the world, and he remains cool because his power isn't offensive, so he has to make up the difference with hockey, and I found that brilliant. And he has the Sea Stone Jute, which was the first time we saw a Sea Stone weapon in the series, and that's cool. But man, all of that just falls apart, bruh. None of that matters. And the art request looks so cool, but man, that don't matter. Anyway, people from around the world are very responsive to Vegapunk's message. We hear them in Dressrosa. We see them in Impel Down. I think we're seeing them too on the Pirate Island. The pirates are jazzed. The Marines are worried. The townsfolk are worried. But yeah, it's a new age of pirates all over again, which leads into a very, very interesting speech by Buggy, in which he gives even more bravado to his men and saying it's our world, not my world. And that tosses the entire outfit of Empty Bluffs into a frenzy. However, Crocodile and Mihawk are not pleased, and Crocodile tells Buggy to sit down, which makes me think this is the start of where the scheming is going to take place, in which they're going to be like, okay, if you're serious about this, we need to start making money moves. We need to start making power plays because we ain't got Jack right now in order to actually find the One Piece. Because if you think about it, they're the only group that doesn't have any poneglyph rubbings, as far as I know. So, yeah, which is very funny because we have a character in this organization who is very intimate with poneglyphs, even though he can't read them. So I just find that an interesting thing to take note of. But then we shoot back to Van Auger, Devon, and Caribou. And then Devon is on the phone with Blackbeard, and she's like, I could just kill him right now if you want, Commodore. And Blackbeard says, nah, I'll deal with him depending on how good his information is. Now, here's the tricky part. I hope we're holding out for a prayer now, because we don't see any of these characters this chapter, and I'll go through them as we move forward. But we don't see York. I hope Caribou has captured York, because it was so weird that she was left alone. Either he captured York or they took York, because it's still weird to think about, why did they come to Egghead in the first place? Touching Saturn and getting Caribou were all just coincidences. There have to be some sort of reason why they came to Egghead. There has to be a reason why. So I hope we find that out, because them showing up is weird. Especially these two in particular, who would be really, really good for a very covert mission, seeing as how we have the powers of cloning, basically, with the dog fruit Model 9 Tail Fox, and we have the power of teleportation with the warp fruit. So it's weird. And then, of course, Caribou kind of fits that bill because he has the power of infinite space thanks to the bog fruit. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. And it's very weird, and I've touched upon this a lot, but it's weird that his powers are so similar to Blackbeard's, because they're the only Logias that store stuff. Very odd. And they're the only Logias that have a very interesting relationship with their regeneration, because more things go into Caribou than there are things that separate Caribou that makes them come back together. And of course, Blackbeard doesn't take in things well at all. He takes double the damage because he takes in everything, right? But he feels everything he takes in. So they both take in stuff. One just feels what he takes in, and he feels it double than a regular person would. And the other, he's just a bog, so it just sinks into his infinite body. So that's just an interesting parallel there. However, I'm wondering how the Cross Guild is going to move forward from here. And I did notice too, there are women in Cross Guild. There are just regular women pirates. So that's cool. I didn't know that. But moving on. I really just want to touch upon this particular hockey business that I found particularly interesting. So Emeth, the giant robot, takes out a wind knot. If you don't know, during the time in which the time skip was about to pop off, we get glimpses of where all the Straw Hats are, right? Nami was on a place called Witheria. Witheria was run by all these wizards headed by Harades. Harades, I've often said, could be a former deity of Burka, because we find out, I think in the SBS, that he is a Birkin. He's the old man who dresses in blue and he looks like a wizard, right? So that guy, right? And he goes and explains all the weather technology to Nami. And one of the pieces of weather technology that he explains is an item called a wind knot, which is a rope. And depending on how many times you tie the rope, it depends on how powerful the wind will be. Wallapede Works here, coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1123, entitled The Void Fortnight. And we're not talking about the video game. Get out of here. But anyway, we have a continuation, finally, of the Yamato cover story. Not much is happening. She has just made up with the children, and she, Denjiro, and the kids are eating Odin. Not the guy, the food. So that's very cool, very cute. I like the little baby that's on her head. He's great. So yeah, that's good. I'm glad we're continuing on with the cover story. We are 11 chapters deep into this cover story because this is volume 11. How long is this going to be without anything substantial happening? Good Lord. But I do find it very funny that we're sticking with her this long. And if we're going by Jinbei logic, she should join the crew because this is going to be one very, very, very long cover story if we're just hanging about eating and she's not even like what halfway through her journey. I still think we're going to meet OT and a lot of the old beast pirates on the way. Don't know where King is, but seeing as how he got attacked by Green Bull along with Queen, they're probably an impel down. So we have to see if we run into Jack or OT or Page One along the way. I'm trying to think, is there anybody else who'll be important? No one comes to mind. Maybe Who's Who? Who's Who would be cool because he had a lot of lore associated with him out of nowhere because he introduces us to the whole idea of Nika. So that in itself is just weird, but we'll see. Don't really know what's to come for Yamato in the future, but I'm excited to see what happens. And the battle is over. Egghead has ended. The Vice Admirals and the Marines were knocked out by the Joy Boy Hockey Blast. Paw! And we see Pomsky and Baby Doll knocked out. I just realized that you can make a pun on her name because she's a baby because of Bonnie, and her name is Doll, so she's Baby Doll. That's good. That's very good. But yeah, we see S-Snake trying to wake Pomsky up. So the hopes of S-Snake being a Blackbeard pirate have been dashed. But I do wonder what's going to become of the Seraphim who've been left behind. Is there going to be a world government ship that comes around to pick them all up? Or is there going to be like a big scavenger hunt that picks away all the important bits from Egghead? I don't know. I still don't know why the Blackbeard pirates even came to Egghead. That's still just so odd to me. And we'll talk about that a little later. But what this chapter tells us is one, yeah, everything's over. And Luffy is out of gear 5th after he thanks the robot for all of his hard work. Yeah, Emmett is down, so I guess Emmett has passed in the battle against the Gorosei. But yeah, the Giants, along with Luffy and the Straw Hats, because we see the Thousand Sunny right behind the Elbaf ship, and we get to see the scale of these things being compared, and the giant ship is at least 4 times bigger than the Straw Hat ship, which is crazy. Think about the scale, because the Straw Hat ship is pretty big. So yeah, they're on their way to Elbaf. We're finally going to Elbaf, boys. Thank heavens. So we got Bonnie supposedly sleeping on Kuma, I guess. We've got Zoro, we've got Usopp elated to be going to Elbaf, and Luffy is now shriveled up and old, being cared for by Nami, which is very cute. I like that scene. And they also have Vegapunk's corpse. And it is Sanji who then thinks about how weird it was that Vegapunk supposedly said something before his imminent demise. It's very funny throughout this chapter that Vegapunk is confiding in Sanji. Because if you recall, Vegapunk was colleagues with Vince Smoke Judge back in the day. So essentially he's confiding this wish that we'll get to later in the son of his former colleague. I think that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of cool indeed, especially seeing how Sanji was the one carrying him around during the later half of Egghead. So that's cool. But this leads us into a flashback. The flashback basically just goes over how Vegapunk thought that the leaked information was caused by Lilith because she's the embodiment of his evil intent, which is interesting to think about. And I've been talking about this on the podcast, Roscoe podcast, a lot. And I've been talking about this over the time that I've been covering Egghead. Vegapunk is a dumb character. He really is, because it's very funny that he suspects Lilith. Then Pythagoras finds out that it was York doing all these misdeeds. And Vegapunk laments how foolish it was to personify his own greed into a whole individual. Yeah, it was dumb. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? And it's funny that we don't get a reason as to why York does what she does, but from the beginning, and I've heard no one else say this. If someone has said it, hey, we're on the same page. But I've always said from the beginning, I think the reason why York did this because Vegapunk treated her poorly and gave her a designated job, but she, being a Vegapunk, like him and the rest of the Vegapunks, saw like, wait a minute, I'm a genius too. Why am I being relegated to being a stomach and a rectum for all these goofies? No, I'm going to be the tippity top. I'm going to be the main Vegapunk. And that's what happened. So it's really weird that you knew you personified your own greed into an individual and then get shocked that you find out that greed was beating greedy. And this is even more interesting if he was indeed mistreating his own greed. So what did you think was going to happen if you mistreated your own greed and then she turned out to be evil and that evil intent turned into more greed and ambition? That's odd, isn't it? But unfortunately, we do not see where York is in the present. However, Shaka, Vegapunk, Stella, and Pythagoras find all this information out. They make countermeasures. They record the message to the world, which they bring up. That's something that O'Hara did not have 22 years ago, which is true. So they're preparing all this stuff, and then they eventually erase their memories so they can't be suspicious to others as the events play out how they think they're going to play out. And apparently, Vegapunk York delivered a piece of the Mother Flame to the world government in order to power an ancient weapon. Vegapunk Stella doesn't say which ancient weapon that the world government has in their possession. I'm going to assume is Uranus, which we find out from Neptune back in the day, seeing as how I believe in Greek mythology, Roman mythology. I believe in Roman mythology, Uranus is called the Sky Father. So maybe the ancient weapon is Uranus, seeing as how it was a big attack from the sky. I still think that big thing that sucked up Capone Beiji during the start of the time skip was Uranus, because we don't have a lot of sky crafts in One Piece. It's like maybe Uranus, the Maxim, and then the rest of them are sky islands. So there aren't a lot of flying machines. But that's just food for thought. But yeah, apparently the Mother Flame can be delivered via mechanized sea beasts to the world government. How she did that, I do not know. Because it seems weird. How does she put that amount of power in a container so it could be transported? That's so interesting to me. But they find all this out. They make countermeasures against York. And then after those countermeasures have been completed, they come to the conclusion that they'll probably have to die. And their deaths are even questioned by, I believe, Shaka or Pythagoras, because they're not sure what death means for them, seeing as how all of them are technically projections of Punk Records, which is being held in a totally different facility. So yeah, that's weird too. I don't know how that works, especially for characters like Lilith and York, seeing as how they seem to be fully biological. I don't know. That's always been a weird thing for me. But moving on, they talk about too how it's important to safeguard the weird champagne bottle that's in the middle of Egghead, because that was the thing creating all these island clouds, which is cool because they're saying that the cloud loft technology, which is what it's called, is a very important component if the world does flood, because then it will give the people of the world refuge, which is a nice gesture. It really is. And it's weird too that during this, we see York up and about while she greets Vegapunk while he's on top of Emmett, because it's weird that you don't really see her moving around a whole lot until the events of Egghead actually start to transpire. So this is weird. Is she checking up on him to make sure he's none the wiser of her actions? That's weird. I don't know. That's suspicious. That's just interesting in itself. So yeah, the three of them, Pythagoras, Shaka, and Stella, erase their own memories as to not act suspicious around the others. and they leave a note for themselves saying that they will have to perish in order for things to transpire, which Vegapunk finds it very odd that he's telling himself to kill himself. And I do find it very interesting that Vegapunk's life basically ends the way that Kuma's life kind of ends, with a memory wipe. Though with Vegapunk, he's just wiping memories of 14 days or so, whereas Kuma's whole personality was rewritten. So, I mean, yeah, it's interesting in that way. It's poetic. But what's weird about this too is there like an artificial brain inside the body of Vegapunk? Because how are his memories wiped if there's nothing to wipe? Because it's understood that the full capacity of his brain is Punk Records. So I guess there's just like a thing that the antenna, the Apple thing on his head, that's just connected to something that acts as his brain but isn't really his brain. I would love to know how that works, because we never got a straight answer how that works. That's so odd. Or is this just brain fruit shenanigans? Is it dough fruit shenanigans? It might be dough fruit shenanigans. I'm not sure. But that's just odd. It's always been odd. Also, funny thing to point out, Shaka's eyes apparently exist as they are able to bug eye his head. And we find this out as Stella, Shaka, and Pythagoras are reading the note from Vegapunk to themselves saying that they have taken precautions and to put faith in themselves that they have to die. So they're reacting to that news. And as soon as they're reacting to that, the Marines are pulling up to the house. They're pulling up to Egghead, as well as Bonnie and Luffy being on the island. I like how they call Luffy Emperor Luffy here, Emperor Straw Hat. That's very cool. And they also find out that Kizaru and Saturn have pulled up as well. And this is during the events of the actual arc. After that, we get the bit of when Vegapunk confides in Sanji, saying that even though he doesn't have memory of what he has done, he feels as though if he were to die here, something important will happen. So trust in him and let him die when they do reach the ground and after Bonnie is safe. So that catches up to speed to the present, when Vegapunk confides in Sanji, and his last words to Sanji presumably are, "About the One Piece, I want you guys to be the ones to find it." So Vegapunk has his money on the Straw Hats to be the ones who find the One Piece. And I think that in itself is pretty cool. And we close out on the Giant celebrating with an exasperated Luffy and a very excited Usopp, as they're all going to Elbaf, the island of Usopp's dreams. So, with that being said, that is the chapter. No break next week. Now, what do I think of all of this? Well, I guess it makes sense as to why Vegapunk seemed a little naive during the events of the arc. That does clean things up a little bit. However, it is a bit weird that we don't know why York did what she did. It's also a bit weird that we don't see York just yet, or see if her plan actually worked, because Saturn is not in this chapter. So maybe Saturn did take York back to Mary Joas, much to my dismay, because I did want her to be a Blackbeard pirate. I think that's where her talents would have shined, as opposed to just being a celestial dragon. But I don't know. We'll see what happens, because still it's weird to me as to why the Blackbeard pirates even went to Egghead. Like, it doesn't make any sense. That's why I still put money down that Caribou ate York or something, because there would have to be a takeaway from this arc that's important, because I just can't see why the world government would get York. Like, why would York win? You can't get what I mean. Also, what's weird, and I'm sure we'll talk about this on the podcast in the future, but in terms of Egghead as an arc, I have to say, despite a lot of the cool things that have happened, and despite the Kuma flashback, which was very good, I have to say that the arc itself is a tad underwhelming. The reason why I think this is because we were promised a lot of answers concerning devil fruits in this arc, and we did get an answer as to where they come from, which kills all those devil fruit tree rumors. Like, stop it. Really, stop it. Those don't exist anymore. There is no devil fruit tree, okay? We're over that. But I think we didn't really get into depth about how a lot of these devil fruit situations can occur, despite having some very interesting devil fruit anomalies in the crew, like Brooke and Chopper. But I guess it is what it is. I'm just kind of salty that we got even more questions as opposed to answers, because many might not think the Seraphim are a big deal. I don't think you know how big of a deal they are. These guys could be story rewriting because they're such big deals within themselves. However, again, I do think Bonnie in herself is a great character. I love how a lot of the context and a lot of the questions that were answered were present in the Kuma flashback, because it is very enlightening, I guess you could say, to get the various scenarios that Kuma was in from his perspective. It's also very cool. By extension, Bonnie now knows everything the Straw Hats have been through and how her father feels about the Straw Hats, and more importantly, Luffy, via all the things that he has seen. So all of his experiences are now her experiences, which is why I can't see Kuma living. It just seems weird for him to live. It also seems weird if Bonnie doesn't join. I'm just saying that again. If Bonnie doesn't join, that would be disastrous. Also, some things that we need to point out. Where is Stussy? Because I think Stussy, and I made videos on this, I've made quite a few, I think she could be a Robin type character in the future, because she does hold some prominence in an area that we have not yet explored. But talking about Egghead as a whole, it just seems like it's made to set up things that will become important in the future. I guess you can compare it to Long Ring Longland, because Long Ring Longland 2 established characters like Kuzan, because before then we hadn't really had a good notion as to how powerful admirals are. So the same thing could be said about Egghead. It establishes how powerful the five elders are. That's what I'm thinking about Egghead. It's an establishing arc. Do I think it's one of the weaker establishing arcs? Kinda. Because again, the biggest lore drops were from Kuma, but then in those lore drops there were more questions like, what is a buccaneer? A lot of people have been theorizing that it could be a type of half giant, kind of like the Onis, considering Kaido and Yamato, and seeing as how Yamato's cover story is happening at the same time as that information was revealed, that seems more likely than not. But we don't really know anything just yet. That's why I hope in Elbaf, I need a full genealogy chart like you gave us in Fishman Island with the merfolk and the fishmen. I need a full genealogy chart of all the giants and all the giant subtypes. I need giants. I need ancient giants. I need Onis. I need buccaneers, presumably. I need to know what happens. Also, wontons, too. I wonder if Big Pan's going to show back up, because he's a wonton. He's a fishman and a giant mixed together. So I need him as well. I hope he does show up, seeing as how Foxy did show up in Egghead with Portame and Hamburg. So yeah, it'll be nice to see him again in Elbaf. I just hope that all the giant lore from Bragi and Dory all the way down to Oars comes in place in Elbaf. Elbaf should be a fun arc. It should be a great arc, but it should be a lore arc in terms of it delving out answers. We need answers on Saul. We need Saul's perspective further on the world government and the Marines. I would like to see Dahl in Elbaf, you know? So all in all, Elbaf, I don't think will be as disappointing as Egghead, because Egghead as a whole, despite it setting us up for a lot of things to be revealed with the presence of Vegapunk, who's the big devil fruit man on campus, it just didn't deliver on those answers, which is sad, because now we have to rely on potentially Lilith and York to give us information about devil fruits moving on. About that, it's weird that too we don't know what we're going to do with Lilith. That's kind of weird too. I don't know where she's going to go. She could go to Neo Mads. She could go to Neo Mads. She could go to cross guild, which would be weird but funny. So we'll just have to see how things go. In the next coming chapters, I don't think we're going to be introduced to Elbaf straight away. I still think there's still a lot to do in Egghead. As far as just finishing things up, telling us where characters are, how the world is reacting, perhaps telling us what's happening on Empty Bluffs Island, which I think will be important. So yeah, there are some things that we still need to know. But all in all, Elbaf, I think, will be better than Egghead, because Egghead is what it is. Maybe in hindsight, Egghead will be better than how it reads right now. We get a lot of big moments, and those are cool, but those big moments just lead into more questions as opposed to answers, which is kind of a melancholy feeling. But maybe Elbaf and other arcs will start to clean things up, seeing as how Oda keeps saying we're at the end of the story, which is a lie, if you ask me. There's too much to go over for this to be the end. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm glad there's no break next week. And yeah, I guess that's all I have here today. Give me your thoughts. Paula B. Woods here. And here we go with chapter 1124 of One Piece, entitled Best Friend. So we have a continuation of the Yamato cover story, in which we are on volume 12. Oni Child Yamato and the Holy Inari Shrine pilgrimage, foiling a kidnapping on the way to Kuri. And we see Yamato protecting a young woman as a mysterious figure is fleeing into the forest. So, wonder what that is about. That's a little interesting. I keep forgetting how humongous Yamato is, because this woman looks like a child under her. Quite interesting. But moving on with our chapter, we're going to talk about Morgan's being kind of evil. And I take you the opportunity to make bank off the fears of the world flooding. But he doesn't care, because he owes one of the few flying machines in the series of One Piece. Very funny, though. It's funny. It's funny how evil and opportunistic he is. But that's the news, baby. It's very cool. I like the characterization of him. And I like how he clashes so roughly with Vivi, who's not about that at all. It says, no one's going to read your paper. No one's going to be dumb enough to believe your lies. Which, I mean, you can't really, twist the truth in this situation, because Vegapunk just told everybody what's up. You know? But hey, I mean, propaganda is propaganda. On top of that, Wapol is very nervous about his only safe haven being disrupted by Vivi, but she does not care. She will not have a liar in her midst. And I find this clash of ideals very interesting. He even threatens to, give her up if she gets too rowdy, which I wonder would he actually do that. I really do. Because I'm wondering now, if that were to happen, would she get a bounty on her head? Because it seems really easy for that to happen. It seems like that's going to be the conclusion of things. Because based on her need to be told that she's a D, and I guess that would lead to her eventually joining the Straw Hats again, because she's too relevant and she's been here too long for her not to be a main character. So that's why I strongly think she's going to join the Straw Hats again regardless. So that's probably gonna happen, or something up to that effect, because I can't imagine that not going anywhere. You kind of see what I'm saying? So yeah, no, it's interesting. And then he's gonna tell the news about Blackbeard and Trafalgar Law, Shakes fighting Kid, and then Luffy killing Vegapunk, even though that was a very, very big lie, and Vivi calls him out on that. Going back to Egghead, and this is where I have to apologize to a lot of people for. Kizaru was conflicted during the entire confrontation. Many people clocked that because it was kind of obvious. I was too busy having fun at his expense. But no, he really was torn up about it, because Sakazuki calls him up. He's questioning why Borsalil's answering the phone. We actually see Sentomaru rowboating away in a similar fashion to how Luffy started his journey. He even has a barrel on the little ship that he's on. However, he is too big to get in said barrel if he is hit by a whirlpool. So good luck, Sentomaru. I'm glad he's not dead. Sentomaru is cool. I loved him during this entire arc. He was really cool. Stand-up dude. Yeah, everyone is still knocked out, which is weird that Sentomaru isn't. Thinking about it now. And then again, he wasn't really an antagonistic force, so maybe that's why. he wasn't aligned as an enemy of Luffy at that point, and I guess of Joy Boy, so he wasn't affected by the Hockey Burst, maybe. Yeah. Borsalino informs Sakazuki that everyone's knocked out. Sakazuki asks about Saturn and the power station, and Borsalino just says, well, when the youngsters get up, they'll give you a report. And then Sakazuki accuses Borsalino of slacking off, which is, man... Ooh, somebody else may be defecting the Marines too. Because then Borsalino just asked Sakazuki, I'm curious, have you ever had to kill your best friend? Which gives Sakazuki pause. And then we get a mini flashback of Kizaru and Vegapunk together. And they met shortly after, I guess, Mads was busted up. Because in this flashback, we see a very young Vegapunk and a very young Borsalino. So I wonder, is this, right after Mads? Because Kizaru can't be no younger than like 20 or something here. Because the beanie indicates that he's a pretty young man. I think when he's wearing the beanie, he's a vice admiral. Or a rear admiral, if I recall. It's been a minute. But yeah, no, he's a young man here. So he's known Vegapunk for his entire life, basically. Which explains why all the pacifistas have his lasers. Because I bet the most studied Logia probably has been Kizaru up to this point. That's how you get the holograms and all that. So, man. Which too is a reflection of Kizaru, because Kizaru himself, which is a very unique Logia power, it's the first time we've seen any Logia clone themselves in the series. But yeah, he too can make holograms. So it's very interesting. And then we see him too, where Borsalino, I'm assuming, first becomes an admiral, and Vegapunk is letting him in on what he plans to do with the island. He plans to call it Egghead. And we see him, along with Kuma and Sentamaru, helping build the place. And we see it with Bonnie. And then we see when Kizaru just skewers him with a light beam. The crazy part is we see the silhouette of Vegapunk falling in Kizaru's glass, which is nuts. Oh, that's a strong paddle, bro. That's a strong paddle. Oh, man. Oh, man. And Kizaru goes back. We get back to the call with Kizaru. And he says, you think I'm slacking off, Sakazuki? Well, if you have time to waste doubting me, come see for yourself, you ingrate. This is the first time in the series in which Kizaru is showing any emotion. There is no poker face here. Oh, I never thought we'd see the day. I never thought we'd see the day where Kizaru actually emotes. This is crazy. I don't know, brother. I don't know. Will he defect like Kuzan? I really do wonder. And where will he go? I mean, it's not likely, but man, woo-wee, I don't know. I don't know, because this is the first time where he's seeing the bad side of Sakazuki, maybe seeing what Kuzan saw. Sakazuki has paused and he apologizes. He says, that's my bad, brother. And Kizaru just says, watch your mouth. Puts the boss in his place. Yeah, because like, I know you, bro. We grew up together in the Marines. Don't sass me. I just had to do some terrible things. But you know, that shows you like Sakazuki does not care, which is so, I want to see what his backstory is, because he's so like dedicated all the time, and yet he gets chewed out by everyone, especially people who grew up with him, which makes sense because we all know who you are, bruh. Don't act brand new because you've got a new position. I don't know, I'm on Kizaru's side with this. Akihito sucks, bruh. So yeah, I wonder what's gonna happen with Kizaru from here on out. Him defecting just seems so unlikely, but I don't know, stranger things have happened. Did you ever suspect Kuzan to be a Blackbeard pirate, you know? But he doesn't really fit any of the current positions out there. Like, I can't see him as a revolutionary either or anything like that. I don't know, maybe he just won't. But I want to see where he goes, because we've got quite a few Marine characters that we need to be dealing with at this point. We have Groose and Hibari and Kobe and Tashigi and X-Drake. We got all a sword, you know? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how the next generation is going to pan out, because the old guys got to make room for the new guard. But this takes us back to the Sunny and the giant ship. It's pretty quiet. And here we have Cowboy Frankie, American Frankie. I love it. I love it. Oh, that's cool. So Frankie, Jinbei, and Zoro are just having conversation about the events that have just transpired. Frankie is relieved that they got out of there alive considering the circumstances. And Jinbei, in his infinite and witty addition to the conversation, says, like he doesn't say anything. I gotta ask. And we've talked about this on the podcast too. What is up with Jinbei just not talking? Like, we've waited so long for characters to just talk to one another. Here we are. Here's the point for characterization for Jinbei. Doesn't do anything. Whereas Zoro has a very cold line in which he says, it's pathetic now that Luffy's upset about an old man dying. Zoro is crazy. And someone says that's a bit harsh. It is a bit harsh. But I like that for Zoro. I like that a lot. Because I like that Zoro recognizes that the crew is a Yonko crew. The crew is a superpower in the world right now. So Luffy should behave as such. I like that for him. I like that he's constantly keeping Luffy in check. That's good. That's good. Something that people said Jinbei would be doing. How did that turn out? Huh? How did that turn out? Ridiculous. Anyway, it characterizes him as the true second in command. That's kind of cool. I like that. I like his perspective. That's more to say than I'm with you there. Like, Frankie's analyzing the situation. Zoro's being rough on Luffy as the captain. And Jinbei's just sitting there. So let me get this straight. On Egghead, you see an abomination that is cloned after yourself. Your identity has been stolen to make a super weapon that presumably will further persecute your people. And you have nothing to say. You have no odd feelings about what has just transpired. Isn't that weird? You don't even agree with Zoro about Vegapunk dying because you had so much to say when Vegapunk was alive about the wrong subject because he was worried about Vegapunk creating the internet or whatever. And I'm like, brother, that's not even important. You were stolen. Your identity, your powers, your face was stolen to make this abhorrent mutant in front of you. And you have nothing to say. Nothing to say at all. Not a thing. Mr. Human and Fishman cohabitation activist has nothing to say about a human stealing his identity to make a super weapon in his image that has all the knowledge of the martial arts of his people. Like, we can't be serious. Like, this is not a serious situation. What is this character? This is a bad character. I keep telling you all, that movie's coming. I'm making the movie. But it's just like, come on, bruh. Nothing to say. Not a word. If you are waiting for Jinbei to grow a character, I feel bad for you, son, because it ain't gonna happen. If that doesn't get him to talk, nothing will. That is crazy. But moving on. Well, at least he's helming the ship, sitting down. All right, whatever. Lilith wakes up, which is great. And here we have something that I was worried about. I even made a video about this. Lilith has the boots off. Thank goodness. She has feet under the boots. They aren't grafted onto her ankles. Great. I'm glad she has feet. I was so concerned about that. I don't know why, but the idea of her not having feet was a disgusting thought to me. I hated that. But yeah, she wakes up. Everyone relieves that she's awake because we see Usopp, Chopper, Nami, and Sanji, who is swooning over her. And then she gets a signal from her headphone, which that might be built into her head. I'm not sure. Though, oddly, that doesn't bother me as much. I gotta be honest, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I guess she's getting communication from Punk Records, or a signal is being sent from Punk Records. And that's when the Straw Hats tell her that she was the only Vegapunk that they were able to save. Lilith is broken up about this. She cries. And that's what Usopp says. What we've all been thinking. How are you the evil one again? Thank you, Usopp. Because she's like the most complex one we've seen. Like her and York. That's why I've always been on their side as the ones to survive the whole Egghead incident. Because they're the ones who got the most characterization throughout the entirety of Egghead. We just need to know now where York is, as well as several other characters. But we'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, she needs to cry for a little bit. So she cries over the loss of the Vegapunks, and it immediately gets over it. It says, I'm hungry. So it theorizes that must be because she's no longer connected to York. They also are surprised too that she got over it that fast. And then it says, well, we have a lot of food because the giants left us a lot of large fruit to eat. And I just want to take a moment to talk about this. This is going to be the first time she eats for herself. This will also be the first time she has to poop for herself. Think about that for a moment. Someone who's never pooped before is going to have to poop for the first time. I wonder how traumatic that's going to be for her. Because I can't even fathom the thought of someone who has never pooped before having to poop for the very first time on their own. That is a horrible thought. And she's got a bit of a wagon on her too, so it's going to be hard wiping back there. Oh no. That's what I'm titling the video, because that's crazy to think about. Oh my God. She's going to have to poop for herself from now on. Oh, that's weird. I wonder if she comment like, oh, that's why York was made, because pooping is such a drag. Because that's just an odd thought, you know? But getting back to the table of giant food, I love giant food piece. Giant food piece is so peak. The atmosphere is gloomy because Luffy is upset that he couldn't save Vegapunk. We see Luffy with a giant grin. Yeah, he's been taking it pretty badly. And then Lilith says, a second ago, I was crying because I was sad about everyone's deaths. However, it's all a matter of perspective. Here's the truth. To put it simply, everyone's alive. And that's when everyone freeze frames and reacts and says, like, what? Even if they're functionally dead, what Lilith says is that you kept your promise to me, so don't be glum, Luffy. And just talking about that, though, I love how the whole ship reacts to. That's great. Both ships. But it's funny because that is never explained, but it makes sense because all the Vegapunks were the same person. So technically that means there are two of the same person running around because York is still a Vegapunk. But with that being said, this, for the little information that we have on how that even works, makes enough sense, I guess, because Lilith is Vegapunk. It has all the same capabilities as Vegapunk, despite, I guess, not technically having the brain fruit, but having the brain fruit. Because Punk Records has the brain fruit. Technically, not even Vegapunk Stella has the brain fruit, even though I'm willing to bet his body would still react as if he ate the fruit. But yeah, I don't know. Lilith is Vegapunk. Great. So they saved Vegapunk, I guess, because that's what Lilith is confirming happened. So it's cool. And Luffy's happy about it. So great. He did not fail, even though he kind of did, but he didn't. I don't know what to think about it. Luffy gets fired up and the feast commences. And Luffy confirms that he will be Pirate King as Robin is hugging Chopper rather roughly because she's excited that she's going to see Saul again. And yeah, we have our big party scene with everybody excluding Kuma, which I want to see how that turns out because we've got Bonnie here, we've got Frankie, we got the whole gang. Also, I was wrong. I have to admit, I was wrong. I did a video about this. I had said it would be perfect if Bonnie joined the crew in this chapter because this chapter's number does contain both of her ages, 12 and 24. However, that did not happen, so I'm sorry on that, bruz. Got it wrong. My bad. But I do think she's still gonna join because even her in the party scene here is kind of telling to me. But we'll see how that pans out. Do I think Lilith is going to join? No, I do not. I do think she should be involved with all the technological Straw Hats like Chopper and Usopp and Nami and Frankie. She should have some effect on them, seeing as how she is on the ship. I do love the fact that Frankie is wearing a cowboy hat because he is going to be his father-in-law on this island. So it's very touching that he's wearing something that Robin used to wear in honor of Saul. If you didn't get the joke, I'm alluding to Frankie and Robin being married and Saul being his father-in-law. That's what I'm getting at. It's a joke. Don't get excited. But yeah, I do find that great that he's wearing a hat that's reminiscent of Saul and Robin. I think that's very cute. But yeah, bro. And then we have someone on the shore of Elbaf awaiting, I assume, the arrival of the Straw Hats and the Giants. So that's going to be pretty cool for the future. And we got a break next week, which is unfortunate. But it is what it is, you know, breaks happen. But now, do I think we're going to Elbaf? No! I think we're going to Elbaf as far as the Straw Hats are concerned. I don't think there are going to be any detours because I do think Elbaf is going to be one of those big Wano style arcs because there's so much to cover with Giant Lore. There's so much genealogy we need to cover. There's just so much to do. So I don't think we're going to get any detours in that respect. However, we need to get glimpses of so many things across the world that we probably won't get to Elbaf proper until like chapter 1129 or 1130, you know. I just don't think so because we got to go to Empty Bluff. We got to talk about Law. We got to talk about Blackbeard. We got to talk about York and Saturn, what's going on with Egghead. We need to talk about so many things. Did York get eaten by Caribou? Is York going to become a celestial dragon? I don't know. I hope she becomes a Blackbeard pirate. I'm still gunning for that. I want that so badly. It may not happen, but we'll have to see. We need to see where Stussy is. Now, if we see a bat fly over the horizon towards this ship, I made some Stussy videos. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think Stussy is going to be like an international super spy from here on out. I just don't think so. I think after getting her blessing for Vegapunk, she's going to go her own way. Her joining the Revolutionaries doesn't really fit. Her joining any other pirate group other than the Straw Hats doesn't really fit, if you ask me. But we'll have to see. So I say all this to say there are a lot of loose ends that we need to tie up. I don't think there's too much we need to talk about concerning like Kobe and the rest of Sword, but that's something to think about because they are major characters moving from here on out. So yeah, lots of things to talk about, lots of things to discuss. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out. But yeah, I don't think we're going to go to Elbaf proper until like, 6 or 7 more chapters from now. But we'll have to wait and see. With that being said, I'll have videos as always for you during our break, and give me your thoughts and tell your friends to watch Polypede Works. Polypede Works here. Coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1125 entitled What Constitutes Death. So we have the 13th volume of the Yamato cover story in which Yamato has visited the Odin Castle, which is being reconstructed, and she's looking for the carpenter Minotoma. Minotoma was the guy with the nails in his nose. I think he was a joke character at one point, like Panda Man, if I'm not mistaken. But he was, too, a big part in Wano, and he was Frankie's master, and Frankie was his disciple during the time in which Frankie was undercover. So it's kind of cool that he's a part of the story again, so to speak. I like that. So we'll see how that unfolds there. I'm just saying it's really interesting how long this is. And I hope this leads to her going out to sea. I really do. I really do hope she goes out to sea after everything's said and done. So we'll have to see. Maybe he'll build her a ship, you know? Who's to say? We'll have to find out. But yeah, the chapter takes us to Egghead. Lucy and Kaku are boarding a Cypherpole vessel. The Cypherpole agents question where Stussy is, and Lucy says she was killed in action. So Stussy has flown the coop. She is gone. I hope my theories are true. I did so many videos on her. I think she could be a Robin character. I think she might be stolen away on the vessel that the Straw Hats are on, going to Elbaf. And it fits her whole MO because she is a secret super spy. So I can see that happening. I honestly can. So we'll have to wait and see. I do hope the nature of her Dofru is revealed too. There's so much interesting stuff about her. Check those 2 videos out, please, because there's so much to talk about and she's so interesting. But moving on, Saturn explains to the 9 vice admirals that the folly wasn't letting Juribani and the Straw Hats get away. The folly was letting that message from Vegapunk to broadcast all over the world. And as he's explaining this, we get a small flashback of how Saturn technically was the one who prevented the giant robot Emmett from being scrapped. So in a way, he ensured the rise of Joy Boy at this particular moment because he thought the robot was too interesting just to scrap for junk. which is his undoing ultimately, and we'll see about that in a few minutes. However, Doberman questions if the message that Vegapunk broadcaster has some validity to it, and for that, he gets his head blown up. It's not a violent explosion, but it is an explosion that knocks him out. The other vice admirals are calling for a medic because that was kind of brutal. Poor Doberman. I don't think Doberman died in this attack. It just looks like he got hit really hard. But as that's happening, the Punk Records section of Egghead Island is being hoisted into the sky by the Cloud Loft machine. And York is freaking out because of this, and she tries to shoot something. I think she's trying to shoot the Cloud Loft. I'm not sure what she's shooting. And that's a shot of her, all right. Good Lord. Oh, Oda. Oh, my. Yeah, so she's shooting something. I'm not sure what she's shooting, but it doesn't matter as Puck Records does get away and fully detaches from the island. And she says, man, I've been played for a fool. Yes, you have, York, as Puck Records just floats into the sky above. Then, flashing back to Barry Joas, we have all the Celestial Dragons freaking out because the food shortage is starting to hit them pretty hard. One guy just shoots his chef in the head. Oh, he always plays them off to be so evil, because they are. They're terrible people. But in the room of authority, we see a very familiar face walking in. We see Figurlin Garland in a fresh fit. He's got a black suit on, the same suit that all the elders wear except for Nasjuro for some reason. But yeah, he's in his fresh fit. He's got his saber on him. So he's the second person in this room that has a sword. That's kind of interesting. And he says that he will be taking the place of the position of defense science deity. And the Vegapunk known as York will be under his preview from this point forward. And he takes his seat, declaring his position. And everyone else is in shock. Now, the funny thing about this scene here, when he finally takes his place as the defense science warrior deity, right? This is the first time in which we're seeing a front-on view of him. And I gotta say, his design is immaculate, because what's going on is that from the side, he looks like a crescent moon. Of course, we know from the SBS, and I did a video about this, but when his hair grows out, it closes the gap between his hair and his beard, and that becomes a full ring or a full moon, right? When you look at him straight on, his head looks like a star. In some translations, the 5 elders are called the 5 elder stars. And of course, they have a celestial theme. So in him being a moon and a star fits perfectly. It's so weird and it's so genius how multi-purpose this design is. And it's crazy how much you can do just by playing around with perspective. I love Figurlin Garland. Also, the Shanks rat allegations, the Shanks Fed allegations are higher than they've ever been. So from this, I'll say this. I think this is the first time in a long time that a elder has gotten replaced. I'm willing to bet the last time this happened is with Jupiter. I think Jupiter before Saturn was the newest 5 elder. So yeah, that's super interesting. I wonder, is Garland going to get Saturn's power, or does he have a power already? Because we know very little about him. But again, this makes a lot of sense. Kind of like with Stussy being a very subtle yet important actor in the Kuma flashback. Garland was there. Garland was there for a lot of it. And his previous position in the current timeline was that he was the head of the Holy Knights. So now I'm wondering, is the person that we see in silhouette in chapter 1121 that looks like Shanks too, are they now the new head of the Holy Knights? That's what I'm thinking, since Garland has moved up in position. That makes perfect sense to me, which is interesting because they were shown in a big panel with all the important characters. So they must be an important character too. And that's why too, Garland was in that same shot. Very interesting. The foreshadowing is crazy. That takes us back to Egghead, where Saturn is having some troubles as black smoke is erupting from him as a ring appears around him. Now, shout out to all the people who caught this, because I was wrong. I was always under the impression that the ring that we see Saturn get summoned by, and we see all the other 5 elders get summoned by during the fight on Egghead, I thought that was Saturn's power because rings, obviously, right? But that's not the case. From this, and from him talking to Emu as he is being choked out by some power, this seems to be Emu's power because Saturn is in communication with Emu directly. This also means that Emu is controlling the immortality of the 5 elders, as well. Saturn is begging for forgiveness as he's being choked out because Emu is very displeased that any remnant of Joy Boy made it into the future. And Saturn is begging because he couldn't have anticipated this could have happened. However, it is his fault because if the robot was disposed of, the Whatnot would not have made it, or the Whatnot would have been discovered 200 years beforehand, and it wouldn't have played a vital role right here, right now, in the conflict of the current day. So his demise is his own undoing for not following orders presumably issued by Emu 200 years ago. It is what it is. He gets what he gets. I'm glad there are stakes. I'm glad there is death here because Emu turns this man into a full-on skeleton. And it's weird too because as this is happening, it looks as though Haki is being emitted from the circle that Saturn is encased in. So I don't know, but he's dead. He's dead and gone, which is crazy. So yeah, I'm happy that consequences were issued. And from this point forward, it does make a lot of sense because Saturn was the only member of the 5 elders that got a lot of play during the events of Egghead. Because thanks to Kuma's flashback, he got a lot of character development. And he even gets continued character development in this very chapter. So, hey, if his role in the story is done, his role in the story is done. Because he's gotten the most. So, I wonder what this power is. I'm thinking this power that Emu has is kind of like powers we've seen before. Like, say, Sugar's fruit, the Hobby fruit, or Moria's fruit, the Shadow fruit. Because what it seems like is that this power can be given to others in order to use on others with the same clearance to use the power, if that makes sense. So like how with Moria, once he extracts the shadow, you can use that shadow however you wish. You can put it inside yourself and gain the abilities of the shadow. The shadow free user can put it inside themselves and gain the shadow strength that way. Or it can be put inside a corpse and make that corpse into a zombie, right? So maybe here you can give this power to other people, maybe in the form of a contract. But when you sign a contract with the one using this portal ring power, they have dominion over you as well. So you have free reign to use the portals as you wish, but then too, you are subjugated to be killed by said user. Kind of like with the hobby fruit too, I guess, because maybe when you sign a deal with the devil, you sign a contract, you also get immortality. Kind of like with the hobby fruit, it's implied that once someone is turned into a toy, they live forever, presumably until their toy body breaks down. So that's very possible that could happen. And we've seen fruits in the story before give you immortality. Based on the situation Brook is in with the revive fruit, the Yomi no Mi, he has immortality. The op fruit can give someone immortality. So it's not unprecedented that Del fruits can give out immortality as an ability. Maybe with this fruit, which I think Emu most likely has a mythical zone. So maybe this mythical zone can just grant others different abilities and different dominion over said abilities. I don't know, but that seems to be the case here. And whatever it is, maybe it is related to 5 because it looks as though this is the same summoning circle depicted with 5 that Saturn was using the entire arc. So yeah, maybe Emu's Delphi has something to do with 5 specifically. And Emu prefers having 5 people under them at all times. And from this chapter here, we see that they can just get rid of someone whom they don't like. So yeah, interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. We cut back to Punk Records, and the various Vegapunks that are Vegapunk Lilith and Vegapunk York have survived. Their consciousnesses, I guess, are stored in Punk Records. And this is the person that Lilith was communicating with, or the people that Lilith was communicating with during her time on the Elbaf ship. So yeah, she was in communication with them. And from the looks of it, man, you know what? Egghead is just full of body horror because all of this is awful. Okay, so Edison, Pythagoras, Atlas, and Shaka are all still alive. Technically, they come together in one body, which is a combination of all their parts, which is both funny and disgusting. It has Edison's head, Pythagoras' arm, Shaka's body and legs, Atlas's arm, and it looks like Atlas's jetpack. Disgusting. And they are securing Punk Records so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, which I'm glad the world government loses this as well. Very good. So they only get York and the power plant. That's fine. Also, sadly, York is not going to be a Blackbeard pirate. I did a video on that, like 2 videos on that. That's a shame, but we'll see how the future pans out because I do think Blackbeard should get a Frankie equivalent in the future because no one seems to be that right now, but maybe somebody is. I don't know. But moving on with this, they are securing Punk Records and are depending on their allies to help them out. That's why they call up Harudes. Harudes is the guy with Witheria, the wizard guy that trained Nami in the past. And he was seen during the whole Vegapunk speech, so this makes a lot of sense. And maybe they're going to him in order to better secure Punk Records, maybe with better cloud technology or something. I'm not too sure. But their plan is to preserve Punk Records until the people of the world are ready for it. Kind of going on to that whole internet plan that Vegapunk talked about earlier on in the Egghead arc. We also get to see the replacements room and how they're going to throw all of York's replacement body parts out because they find them creepy. I do too, because we see 2 armless, headless torsos and legs of York, full booba and everything. That's wild, bruh. I don't know about that, but this is the room where Atlas got her face from when it was damaged by Lucy earlier on in the arc. What a creepy room. There aren't a lot of Lilith parts in this room either. I think we see a Lilith head, which is, I hate this. I don't like this at all. Oh, goodness gracious. I hate Egghead for the body horror. The body horror is as worse as it's ever been. The body horror is as worse as it's ever been in One Piece. Good lord. This is disgusting. I hate this. We also see these square robot heads. I don't know who those are for. They kind of got the little turn key that Pythagoras had, so I don't know what that's about. They look nothing like Pythagoras, though, because Pythagoras has a rounded head, and these are square, so I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. The room is weird. I can't wait to see this in the anime, though, because, I wonder how they're going to do it. Oh, goodness. Yeah, where are they dumping the York body parts off at? Can you imagine someone just fishing up a full human female torso somewhere? And also, this does clarify that they are mostly cybernetic, but due to Vegapunk growing organs, like flesh and blood organs, York still might be mostly biological. And there's less of her that's robot than other Vegapunks. I would say that for her and for Lilith, strangely, because Lilith has the least amount of parts in this one shot. So yeah, I don't know, but it's disgusting. Oh, I hate it. I hate this. Flashback to the Kawabaka Queendom, and the revolutionaries are just discussing what has been broadcasted by Vegapunk and discussing the importance of the One Piece as that could be connected to the ancient weapons. And we get to see Koala again, lovely Koala. But this is where, once again, Ivankov lets us know some very interesting information. How does this keep happening? Because let me remind you, Ivankov is the first one who tells us the full name of Emu. So now he's telling us that there are multiple big bridge structures being built around the world. And Tequila Wolf isn't the only bridge, because there's a Tequila Wolf, a Vodka Wolf, a Rum Wolf, and a Bourbon Wolf. What's interesting about this, too, is that I wonder if Vodka Wolf is in the Vodka Kingdom, where Kaido is from originally. That's something to think about. But yeah, I guess these bridges were being meant to be built to a point because there's 4 bridges. So north, south, east, west. So maybe there are bridges settled in 4 corners of the world, building to a particular point. I wonder why. Maybe they're to connect to Mary Joas or something, because they're supposedly meant to counteract the flooding, but I'm not really getting why they're being built. Like, for what purpose? Maybe as a land bridge to connect slaves to Mary Joas in order to serve celestial dragons, further subjecting them even after the world has ended. Maybe that's why. Really weird. But yeah, then Dragon says something for the first time in forever while he looks east, and he says, Vegapunk, among those who heed your warning, many will act out of self-interest, not peace. We must hurry and achieve victory for our cause before the people of the world kill each other to secure habitable land. Which makes sense because now everyone knows, like, oh, the world is flooding. We must get to places in which we can habitate because everything will be swallowed up by the great ocean. So it's interesting. It's interesting because I wonder, are we saying now, because Dragon and Saba were in that shot in 1121 as well, are we saying that the Revolutionary Army too technically is going after the One Piece? And if so, how quickly are they going to be snuffed out? Because I keep saying, even from this chapter here, it's very weird that Ivankov seems to be the only one who knows anything. Ivankov seems to be the only one in this entire organization that is intelligent. They are on his island right now. Presumably, like I've said before in the past, an island that is presumably like, say, Thriller Bark or Dressrosa, in which it's being controlled and manipulated by the hormone fruit. So it's very odd that he's just here and nothing is really happening. And I wonder if this is going to turn over and we find out that Ivankov is not what he actually seems. Because I can't believe he's just a member of the Revolutionary Army and that's it. And we still have some gray areas as to how he met Dragon and what his true intentions are. Because remember, throughout the entirety of Impel Down, there is a bit of a two-faced persona going on. I talk about that in a video I made a while ago. But with that being said, there is no break next week. Thank goodness. We are moving on with 1126 next week. This is very good. Very interesting chapter. I can't wait to see what happens in the future. But give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works. Polypede Works here, coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1126, entitled Taking Responsibility. So we have volume 14 of Yamato's cover story, in which she finds out that a local soba shop in Curry is reporting missing girls. And we see just how massive she is compared to this soba shop owner. The size of her gets me every time. It really does, because I keep forgetting that she's 8'8". It's so funny. But continuing on with our chapter, we have the giants and the boys celebrating. We finally get an explanation as to why Brocky and Dory were with Shanks. It's because Oimon and Kashi, after the events of Water 7, actually went to Little Garden and retrieved Dory and Brocky. They convinced them to come back to Elbaf with them to get them weapons to finish their duel. Because at the time when Oimon and Kashi found them, they were just duking it out with fists. And it can't really be a fight to the death with just fists. And once this is explained, Nami asks, so you went back to Elbaf for weapons, so you're going to keep fighting? And Dory and Brocky, of course, say, of course! Restored. Faith in this long, cherished feud restored. Oh, I'm glad. Because I know Zach and I were so worried that just happened with no explanation. So I'm glad there's an explanation as to why they're off of Little Garden, and they will eventually go back. Nami is over it because she doesn't get manly bravado Usopp chastises her, saying, "Didn't you learn anything in Elbaf?" Luffy chimes in. And then we get a little bit of lore building because apparently they're all drinking some Elbaf liquor or abstain called the Green Fairy, and they are warned that it'll make you hallucinate. I'm not sure if that's coming into play in this chapter because everything that they experience throughout seems to be real, but that could be a plot point later on. So yeah, party ensues, and Bonnie finally gets to watch the horizon with Kuma. I don't think Kuma's dead. I keep thinking that he's going to die. I keep thinking that, but no, he's not dead. He's just chilling out. That's cool. It's still uncertain what his fate would be, but it's nice to see that father and daughter are finally reunited. I like that. I like that a lot. So, flashing back to Gartel Island, which is the island in which Bart burned the flag of the red hair pirates like a while ago during a cover story. We see the consequences of that unfolding, which were alluded to at the end of the Wano saga ending. So, yeah, Bart has been caught by Red Hair and the boys. The Fed has caught our boy Bartolomeo. Bart is begging for forgiveness as Shanks looks on. Hongo gives him some poison and says, "Deliver this poison to Straw Hat Luffy because your boss should take responsibility for your actions." The bro Bartolomeo drinks it instead, saying that it's his responsibility and he will not bother Luffy with actions that he took upon himself to do. But it turns out that this wasn't poison at all. This was just a placebo in order to test Bart's loyalty. Based Bart, though. I love it. Based Bart. He continues to be the best in the Grand Fleet. I love you, Bart. You're the greatest. So they get to sail off on the Going Luffy Senpai, which is cursed. Unfortunately, even after Shanks is quite touched that there are people out there who care so much about Luffy, Yasopp chooses to stand on business, which is surprising because he doesn't stand up and be a father to his son, but he'll stand up for this. He shoots the Going Luffy Senpai and it explodes in one shot. What? Oh no, what kind of... That's crazy. Hockey really does affect projectiles that severely. That's insane because the explosion is huge. We know they're not dead, but I hate they blew up. Oh, my boys. But they'll be fine. They're too valuable to die. They're too valuable. And yeah, the cursed ship, the Going Luffy Senpai, is in flames. A lot of ship busting lately. First, it was the Polar Tang. Then it was the Victoria Punk. Now the Going Luffy Senpai. You hate to see it. But maybe now they'll get a ship that's a parody of the Thousand Sunny. Maybe that will happen. Let's hope. But yeah. This really does cement too that Bart is not going anywhere if that was a concern. He's down for Luffy 100%. He is our lead member in the Grand Fleet. There's no way he'll ever leave the Grand Fleet. I don't believe it. So, cutting back to Hachinoso, the pirate island, we still see that Pizarro is beaten up because the island has been split, the skull of the island. It's so funny it's covered in bandages. That's so stupid. And Teach is chewing Pizarro out for letting Kobe get away. It is very funny because this is a projection of Pizarro using the Owl's fruit, but he can feel it because of the Owl's fruit's weakness. I find that so funny. Teach is so pissed. He's got pistol in the hand grabbing Pizarro by the mustache. It's so good, bro. I love it. I simply love it. Meanwhile, Sanwan Wolf is doing his best to prepare the town, but he's knocking buildings over with his massive behind. That's great, bro. He's like, oh, where did this shop go? Oh my god. Oh, the Blackbeard Pirates are a treat, bruh. They're a treat. But Despite them getting rocked by Sword, the infantry has not lost morale. They are very, very, very hyped. And, oh, someone has a parrot. You see a parrot in this shot. That's cool. Oh, they really are the piratey pirates. That's sick. I didn't know people had parrots on the island. I like that a lot. But yeah, now we have the boys just chilling while Kuzan gives Blackbeard staff support. And we find that they have indeed captured Garp. Also, forgot to mention, Moria has gotten away. That's what Blackbeard's mad about. He let Moria escape. So Perona and Moria for Cross Guild, it's coming true, boys. It's real. It's so real. Moria got out. Moria got out. That means Thriller Bark is out. Thriller Bark is on the high seas now. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm excited. Oh, I'm so excited, bro. I'm so excited. Moria has escaped. Okay. So yeah, Kuzan lets Teach know that Garp has been captured. Garp is seen chained up, looking like Ace, looking like Jinbei, is bringing back memories to Marineford and Impel Down. I don't know. That's a little interesting. That's a little interesting how we've come back to a very similar point. Maybe Luffy shouldn't stop and save him, because he's got Yonko duties to attend to, can't be bothered with some old man. I kid, but I wonder where this is going to go. And yeah, we also see that Blackbeard now has pudding in his clutches. So that is also very interesting. And the funny part now is we see Lafitte, and apparently he's surveilling what's going on at Navy Amit Shipping HQ. Now, if you don't remember, Amit was an underworld boss, and his occupation was shipping magnate, the shipping king. And we saw him at the tea party. So that's kind of interesting. We just had a bunch of Stussy lore come up, and now we see what Amit's business is. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, Lafitte is surveilling what's going on here. And apparently, once things are being shipped out to the Red Port, they blow up thanks to the revolutionaries' tempering. So that's pretty interesting. As the sabotaged Bondalas who are trying to bring up food to Mary Joas keep blowing up. So yeah, the Celestial Dragon food supply is kind of botched, which is interesting. And Blackbeard is intending to move out because of that. He's going to act on their weakness, which is going to be kind of interesting. I wonder what's going to happen there. But as that's going on, Yvonne, Caribou, and Vet Auger pull up, and this is the best scene. Avala Pizarro picks up their ship using the power of the Owls through with his hand. It's like he's holding a toy ship. It's so funny. So that's how they dock the boats. Avala Pizarro just picks up the boat. That's great. That's fantastic, bro. I love that a lot. That's great. This is a great panel. And Caribou is freaking out. As you should be, because who would expect that? Who would expect that? That's so funny. Oh no. That's great. That's absolutely fantastic. But as an aside, I do find it funny that both of the fanboys of Blackbeard and Luffy are in the same chapter together. That's pretty cool. And one is being accepted in, and another is facing the consequences of acting upon his boss's behalf. Very interesting, very cool. But to continue, going back to the giant ship, which has a name now. It's called the Great Eric. And it appears that the Thousand Sunny has gone missing, which is a bit of a problem. And everybody is kind of just recovering from their hangover, it seems. Funny little scene here. I love that Robin and Frankie are talking to one another. Robin, of course, doing her bit of being very morbid, saying maybe they were swallowed by a giant fish. And Frankie's like, oh no, that's possible because the fish around here are giant because they're near Elbaf. I love that we see Bonnie tugging on Jinbei. That's great. I love that. And apparently, like, I guess Lilith is just zoned out. I don't know why she's facing the ship's wall here. That's so odd. That's so weird to me. And we did see her eating earlier on in the chapter. So yeah, she is eating now. So that's something. I guess this is her first time drinking alcohol too, now that I think about it. Oh, so she's probably gassed. Wow. Because I imagine she's a lightweight. She has had no time to build up a tolerance because she's never consumed anything. That's crazy. Wow, the implications of that are scary. But yeah, the Straw Hat ship is missing. And then we see a black void. Nami wakes up in full Elbaf attire in a Lego playset house. It kind of looks like that other type of toy back in the day. It was a girl's toy, I forgot. But this is super interesting. You know what the first thought came to mind when I saw this? I thought, what if she is on Elbaf right now and she's in a Lego playset that belongs to a giant? Because to a normal person, a Lego playset for a giant would be massive. It would be the size of a regular sized house. You see what I'm saying? So that's interesting. Either that or it's the effect of a doll fruit. But I believe in the former rather than the latter, especially seeing as how someone has taken the time to dress her up, presumably as an Elbathian princess. So yeah, the outfit's hot, by the way. Love it. She's got an Usopp armband too, which is interesting. I don't know if that's going to go anywhere, but I love this fit already. It kind of reminds me too a little bit of how she was depicted in that one Food Wars comic for Sanji, where it depicts Sanji cooking on Kamabaka Queendom, and he imagines feeding Nami and Robin, and they're in like caveman gear. This reminds me of that. So that's pretty cool. And with that being said, that's the end of our chapter. No break next week, boys. We're going for it. We are going for it. I'm very excited. But yeah, no break next week. Give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works. Polypede Works here, coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1127 entitled Adventure in the Land of Mystery. So we have, to start us off, the 15th volume of Yamato's cover story in which she is sitting with Inu Rashi, who has become the daimyo of Kuri, and they are discussing the disappearances that have been going on. And it's super interesting here because he is the daimyo of a section of Wano, which means one, Nekomamushi is probably one, Kawamatsu is probably one as well. This also means that Carrot is installed in Zou permanently, most likely, because I did not think our Mink boys from Zou were going to be on Wano permanently. I did not think that. If he's the leader of the section of the country, yeah, no, he ain't leaving. I don't think he's leaving at all. Neither is the cat. So that's kind of funny. It's also funny that we see the dog here, and there's a cat in this chapter who's also big and very reminiscent of Nekomamushi now that I think about it. But yeah, we are at volume 15. I do hope this does fold into perhaps a going away party for Yamato once everything is said and done. Because I think that'd be really cool if we are saying that Yamato is going to be like a main character after all this, which I think she will be, especially seeing as how if we do get into giant genealogy in Elbaf, it'll be really cool for her to maybe like show up late or whatever, and then she can be a part of the explanation or what have you. I don't know, but it just seems appropriate for her to be there because Kuma is technically there as our Buccaneer representative, and Buccaneers may be some sort of half giant. So it'd be cool to have an Oni there who also might be a type of half giant, considering the events of Wano and how good she got along with the artificial ancient giants created by Vegapunk, who worked for Kaido. So I don't know. It would make sense to me. It really would. But continuing on with our chapter, there is an explosion in what seems to be Elbaf and bugs that have been knocked out. But we finally get a proper shot of Yggdrasil, the giant tree from Norse mythology. So it's real. We kind of figured it was real because I think we've seen like a bit of this way back in the Big Mom flashback. So Yggdrasil was always like on the topic for being real. They also mentioned they needed to report the fire to the great sun deity. So that's interesting because now is someone holding the title of Nika right now? Is Nika like a king here in Elbaf? I don't know. Also, the houses that we see next to the Yggdrasil tree shot, we see that the houses also look like the Lego house that we left from in the previous chapter. So it's weird that Belfian architecture just looks like Lego. Though, like people were saying, Lego is from Denmark. Giant culture could be based off of Denmark in some way. And I believe Lego is the biggest export out of Denmark. So maybe this is a nod to that. I know people were saying that with 1126, so maybe I didn't expect that, but okay. But yeah, some giant bees have been knocked out, and they're called stinger mole, apparently. And then we see a giant talking to another giant, in which they explain that a trim was heard earlier, and someone called the mighty ear deity collapsed, and that seems to be a giant rabbit. I assume it's a giant rabbit because this giant is saying that the rabbit was enormous, and if these two are giant, if they are indeed giants, which I guess they are, we don't get a size comparison, but if these two are giant, a giant calling something enormous means that the animal has to be bigger than a giant for someone who is big to consider something else enormous. That's just my logic thinking here. And then we get to a place called Big Stein Castle, which is the Lego castle that we saw Nami in the previous chapter. And she has had a confrontation with another giant bug, in which she zapped using Zeus, which is very cool. Love to see Zeus on screen. And yeah, she says, what's this huge bee? So yeah, it's a big state of confusion. And this is, yeah, it's not even a play set. It just seems to be how buildings are in Elbaf, apparently. And I guess this is a giant's castle because I don't know. It looks kind of big just comparing it to Nami. Oh, not to mention, I do love the outfit. I like that she has like a little mini skirt. And these boots are crazy. They kind of look like the Egghead boots, but they're better because they end into these hills. I love them. I love them a lot. They're great. But yeah, she's calling out for Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy. She said she'll even take Usopp as she's roaming through this castle. And then she hears Usopp's voice. She stumbles on the floor. She comes across Sonic the Hedgehog, baby. But no, she comes across a giant hedgehog. She spooks it. The hedgehog gets spiky. And then the hedgehog gets mad and starts chasing after her. And then she goes to where Usopp's voice is being heard. And Usopp is being eaten by a giant house cat wearing a crown and cape. This reminds me of a Norse mythology story that one of my moderators on the Digital Burrow, my Discord, talked to me about like several years ago at this point. And it was about Gada Loki. So in this tale, he challenges Thor to lift the paw of a house cat. But the house cat is not the house cat. It's the world serpent in disguise. So this cat might be a reference to that story. And the Loki of Elbaf could be Utgarda Loki and not like Loki, deity of mischief from Norse mythology, who is Thor's brother. Probably not him, but it's probably this Loki, who was still a king of trickery in a way because he tricked Thor. But moving on with the chapter, yes, the giant cat has started to nibble on Usopp. Nami prepares Zeus to shock the hedgehog. The hedgehog then is electrocuted, falls into the house cat. Then the house cat gets electrocuted as well and proceeds to chase Usopp and Nami. Usopp is in his Obelix garb from that one comic strip, Asterix and Obelix. Yeah, he looks like him. And you know what? His trousers, his overalls look like Queen's overalls because they are striped vertically. And they have the weird 8-shaped buckles that Queen's overalls had. So maybe queen has been to Elbaf? I don't know. But Usopp is looking sharp and he's got his curvy Viking helmet. And he's sporting a full beard. So is this a what? What was it called? Is this a a Film Z? Yes, a Film Z situation in which the beard is fake. Or is the beard real? I don't know, but this fit is killer, baby. And yes, we have Usopp and Nami shenanigans yet again. Oh, it feels like it's been decades since we've had this. Oh my days. Oh, Elbaf has started off great, baby. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So they are running from the giant house cat and they're having a conversation about the last thing they remember is being on the giant ship drinking. And that's when Nami reflects back to what the giant said about how the green fairy was a hallucinogenic. And then they reach a dead end as they run. And yeah, this entire place is just made out of Lego. What is the thing with this? You know, like, is this a devil fruit ability or what? Seeing as how all the architecture in this particular section of Elbaf seems to look like this. I wonder, is this just masonry or did a devil fruit ability cause this? And I remember, I have to put this up on screen, there was a color story in which the Straw Hats were building a castle with Lego. I remember that too. So this feels like a very funny callback to that cover story, or color spread, excuse me, to that color spread. So that's interesting just in itself, especially seeing as how as the cat is running towards them and Usopp gets cocky thinking the cat is an illusion only to get batted away by his giant claw, he crashes through the wall. The cat crashes through the wall. So the cat, I guess, is bigger. Yeah, he may be transforming at this point because we see that as they're falling, the cat has now become a lion. So this could be the cat's hybrid state, which would be weird because it doesn't look that much different from the way he's looking here. But yeah, also important thing to note, this is the first time in which a animal has eaten a normal zoan that's of a similar species to itself. Usually what we get is like with, say, Stronger, for example, we have a horse who has eaten a mythical horse fruit because Stronger is the user of the horse fruit model Pegasus. But here with this cat, whom from what we see a little bit after this seems to be a zoan, he most likely has just eaten a normal lion fruit. Now, we're going to go back to KMDP again, who once again is a moderator on my Discord, The Digital Burrow, link in the description. But he was also talking to me about how the Emerald City that was mentioned way back in Jaya by Bellamy could be here. And the weird thing about that is, what if this lion is a reference to the Wizard of Oz? Because if I recall correctly, the lion at the end of the movie, once he got his courage, was wearing a crown. So yeah, I don't know. And he was wearing a cape. Yes, he was. He was wearing a crown and a cape. So this could be a reference to the lion, at least in the movie, the lion of the Wizard of Oz, the Cowardly Lion, because he's wearing a cape and crown, much like the lion here. And I guess this could play too into the whole bit of trying to be something you're not, or a false courage, as the devil fruit user in question is not actually a lion. He becomes a lion, but he's really a cat. So I don't know. That's something to think about moving forward. But yes, the cat transforms into a lion, so he might have the cat fruit model lion. And then the only other instances we have of a person or animal eating a fruit that's a similar type to them is Luffy and Sengoku, who have eaten the human fruit models Daibutsu and Nika, respectively, which is on brand because we mentioned the sun deity in this very chapter. So yeah, that's something to think about. And then too, it's very funny that the Sunny is missing, and we know the Sunny is a lion-themed ship, and they come across a lion. So I don't know. There's a lot of parallels, a lot of things to talk about with them coming across a house cat that can just turn into a lion. And yeah, we know it's his own because as they are confronted with said lion, I believe it's Nami who says it suddenly turned into a lion, we're doomed. That's of course when our trio of boys come in with Ifrit, Jumbe, Ipal. Ipal is French for shoulder, and it's called Ifrit, Jumbe, Ipal Strike. So that's cool. And then we got Luffy coming in with a Gear 4th Elephant Whip, which I think is new. I don't think we've ever seen the elephant variant of whip. I think it's all been just elephant gun. So that's cool. I'm glad the Gear 4th, or rather Gear 3rd. Wait, no. Wait a minute. He says Gear 4th. He doesn't change shape. I wonder if that's a mistake. I just noticed that. Yeah, he says Gear 4th Gum Elephant Whip. So you know what? I remember there was fan art like some years ago of people saying that Gear 4th would get compartmentalized just like Gear 3rd and Gear 2nd were at the start of the time skip. Maybe this is the beginning of that, in which he can just make one section of his body Gear 4th. Wouldn't that be interesting? Yeah, because Luffy looks completely normal, unless that's a big typo. That could be a typo. But he says Gear 4th Elephant Whip. That's really weird. And just his leg changes. And it still has the bulbous round shape of a Gear 3rd attack, but he says Gear 4th. Hey, and then we have a attack from Zoro called 3-sword style Kala Sutra Great Dragon Twister. Is that a new upgrade of Great Dragon Twister? Kala Sutra? Because we see he's got black blades here, so yeah, I don't know. That could be, because I don't think we've seen a hockeyed variant of Dragon Twister. I cannot recall if we have or not. I'll have to look that up. But that's super cool. And the three of them defeat the lion. And you know what's cool about this? We get a team attack. How long has it been since we've seen a team attack? That's amazing. All Elbaf start off strong, baby. Oh, I love to see it. I love to see it, man. I love to see it. Yep. And the lion is defeated. And as soon as he's defeated, he trained his back into a house cat, much like Zoans do. So I think that confirms that this lion or cat is a Zoan. And we have, for the first time, a lion fruit in the series, which is a good point. And we have a cat eating a animal fruit that's a normal animal that just happens to be the same type of animal that it is. So that's cool. Can't wait to see if we get a name confirmation on the cat, man. And yeah, they're just sitting atop the cat. Luffy wonders how the cat tastes. Oh no. Oh no, bro. And then they mention that rabbit we grilled up earlier was sure tasty. So that was the ear deity. So they ate the ear deity. Oh boy. Is that going to be a big issue? Because to call a rabbit a deity must mean the rabbit's important. So I wonder if that's going to be like a international incident to eat something that's called a deity, if that's a thing. And we get another funny moment of Nami thinking Usopp has died, but he hasn't. But he says she'll pay for that human shield stunt she pulled earlier because she was using him to defend herself against the lion, which is great. I missed that. She says, she yells, holds him up, and he yells back, "Hey, I'm not a shield." It is so heartwarming to see Nami and Usopp shenanigans again after I don't know how many years, bro. Oh my goodness. But yeah, the fits for our three boys here look amazing. Luffy's got his horn crown. He looks great. Zoro's got some goggles. He looks great. And then Sanji. Sanji's got this kind of knightly garb on. He looks great as well. All the Elbaf fits look immaculate. You know Oda was excited to draw this because everything looks great. And yeah, the Yggdrasil tree can be seen in the horizon. So this thing is massive. I can't wait to go up it. I bet you there's a whole village in that tree. And based on some theories I have made considering Ratatasker, I hope, oh boy, I hope I'm right. Especially seeing as how we have giant animals. I'm very excited to see what happens. And this is when Sanji mentions, if you're going after food, don't forget that bee battalion and their hive. It'd be a shame to waste them since they're so nutritious. And that was the bee that we saw earlier in the Lego castle, and that we saw even earlier on the ground in front of those two giants. So yeah, what was presented in the start of the chapter gets called back at the end, and I think that's pretty neat. And yeah, Nami's just freaking out about how they're all so calm about everything and taking things in stride. Another interesting point is that Zoro says, let's prioritize finding the sea in our ship. We need to establish the crew's safety. Taking a leadership role once again. I love to see it. That's good. That's good. That's good. I like that. Yeah, and Nami's confused as to where they all are anyway, but we all know they're on Elbaf. So this was a good chapter. This is a great start to things to come. I like where we are. I like that we started off with action. Luffy's powers continue to develop in odd ways because, man, Gear 4th Elephant Whip. And it's weird because Elephant is not a part of the Gear 4th compendium of attacks. It's not in the Gear 4th arsenal at all. It's all like Rhino this and Kong that. And Colvern, which I think is a snake themed attack. So yeah, there's never an elephant attack in Gear 4th's arsenal. So this is kind of weird. Elephant was only reserved for Gear 3rd. I'm so confused about that. But yeah, like I said, this could be a further development of Gear 4th, and he doesn't need to go into a full state anymore to use Gear 4. So Bound Man, Tank Man, and Snake Man are all just used for very serious situations, and this is now one of those. Very interesting. Very interesting. But with that being said, we are on break next week. Shame, hate to see it, but I'll have content for you as always. With that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works Here. Polypede Works Here. Coming to you once again with One Piece 1128 entitled RPG. So, we are here. Finally, after a long week break, we have a big old issue in Jump, in which Luffy's on the front of Jump. And it's quite gorgeous. The painting on this is magnificent. Oh my god. It's just, wow. Dripped out in pirate garb once again, having the straw hat, and it's watercolor painted. Very nice, very cool. And we also get a color spread. And once again, Jinbei is in the back, because this is styled after Harry Potter, and the crew are flying on brooms. Frankie and Nami having this big souped up broom. I love the development of their relationship. I think that's great, because it kind of started in Wano, where she started to see him as a big brother. So that's cool. And then we have a giant dragon, whom is purple. Now, this dragon looks like a dragon number 13 from Punk Hazard. So it's very interesting that we're seeing this type of dragon in a color spread. I'm just saying that's still on the table for Monkey D. Dragon being a dragon. I did a video on that. So we'll see what the nature of that is. But I want to point out, these Straw Hats are wearing uniforms very similar to Harry Potter, but their ties and their undergarments, it looks like, some of them, because the girls have skirts related to their ties, and the backs of the capes also relate to their colors. They're all the personal Straw Hat colors, because we have Robin in purple, Sanji in blue, Frankie in cyan, Nami in orange, Usopp in yellow, Luffy in red, of course, Chopper in pink, Brook in gray, which is funny because his colors are white and black. So yeah, like I've said many times, for him, they usually choose purple or gray. Makes sense. Zoro way in the back with green, and Jinbei's the only one not wearing a tie. And he, of course, is in the back as well, like he always is, because Oda does not like drawing him for these things. I don't know what it is. You think I'm fooling you. He is always really out of the way when it comes to these color spreads. And I think the only time in which he was front and center is when he was naked and just had, like, I guess, undergarments or, like, a kilt on, but his upper body was exposed. It was one of those beach ones. And we got to see his full upper half for the first time. But yeah, he is never ever drawn in these things, like in full showing, wearing the outfit of the theme or whatever. It's very weird. It's very weird because it always happens. And right now, he's not even wearing a tie like the rest of them. Why is this joke of him being a djembe, wearing a djembe so important? You know? Because that's the only joke he's got. It's really weird. But anyway, moving on with the chapter. I can't get over that because it keeps happening. It keeps happening. And people think I'm crazy. It keeps happening. Why? Why could he wear a dress shirt like the rest of the crew? Because of the joke. That's so lame, bro. I'm sorry. Because the rest of this is simply amazing. And I love how the brooms are made out of bamboo. That's cool. It's way more textured than just making them simple wooden brooms. I like that a lot. But man, I can't get over that. And he's just a doodle in the back. Why does he not want to draw this character? I think because it's too much work. I honestly think that. I think it's because it's too much work to depict him all the time. And I'm like, okay, if that's too much work, why do you depict him in this manner? You can draw him however you want, but no, he's keeping eternal consistency with this joke. It's so weird. But yeah, moving on with the chapter for real though. Chapter 1128 is called RPG, like a video game. Even though we're in a playset, it seems Sanji is carrying Nami. The crew are trying to find out the nature of this place. Luffy's a little disappointed because he thinks that Usopp could have took out that cat lion thing, but Usopp actually woke up in its mouth. And they're also wondering the nature of their outfits, because it's weird that they're dressed up in Elbathian garb, but it's human sized. And then we get this guy approaching on this grasshopper motorbike. When I saw this, it brought me immediately back to Strong World, because I remember Frankie riding one of these, and it was really cool. The tattoo on this guy is really interesting. We don't get a name for him though. Kinda looks like a crab, but it does continue up into his arm from his belly, so I'm not really sure. And they keep mentioning this sun deity. I also find it very funny. Both Sanji and Nami are afraid of the grasshopper bite because they don't like bugs. I love that there is so much like old school character in this chapter. There is a lot of that. That's what makes this chapter great. There's so many return to form of old gags that we have not seen in what seems like a decade. Oh, I think Elbaf is going to be great. Elbaf is going to be what we want it to be, or at least what I want it to be. But yeah, they keep mentioning this sun deity person, and then they bring up how they've done away with the various animals and the Big Stein Castle and then the Big Rabbit before, because they too are referred to as deities, because they mention a needle deity, an ear deity, which is the rabbit, and then the what is it called, the cat? The cat's name is Cat. We'll have to do another video about that later. But the cat is important in this arc, which is interesting. Yeah, all the big animals are referred to as deities. And the guy that we're talking to is human sized, so that's interesting. Probably because we are in like a big diorama, as we find out later. And apparently the deity animals protect the town, which, to be honest with you, it just seems like a big pet enclosure from what we found out later. And then the old guy talks about adventure and venturing beyond the temple of the sun deity. Luffy gets excited and he rushes off to find it, which is amazing. Simply amazing. A return form. Nami apologizes, which makes the old man blush. Zoro gets excited about the idea of there being more giant animals to beat up. And Sanji berates him because he says you and Luffy just enable each other at this point, which is very funny because Sanji, where have you been? And also, again, we're back to character. We're back to character interactions. I don't think we got any of this in Egghead. I mean, a little between Luffy and Zoro, but it just seems more organic here. I don't know what it is. And the old man discovers that the castle has been pretty much destroyed, which is funny. But yeah, Luffy is rushing off to seek adventure. And they look like they're running down... I want to make the joke that's a yellow brick road, but I'm not sure. It is a road made of Lego blocks, though. And that's when Luffy runs into the mirror that creates the fake sky that's surrounding this place. Breaks right on through it, head first. And that's when we see that this entire place truly is like a big pet enclosure. It's a big diorama because they break into a workshop of sorts where there's a giant sewing machine and a bunch of Lego blocks. And that's where you find Chopper. Yeah. Nami embraces Chopper, who she then says she's owed for the hug. I'm telling you, brother, we're so back with the gags. We're so back. Oh, this is such a breath of fresh air. I love this. Usopp's examining the clothes that have been made for them because they're all human size. And that's when he turns to Nami and says, "That's Cole. You were scared earlier too because Chopper is frightened by the goings on that have happened recently." But yeah, it's like the clothes were made as if you were making clothes for dolls. So this looks like a big LARP room. Kind of like a hobby room that you have in your house. I like it. You know, it reminds me too, like those big Calico Critter playsets that you can buy with the animals that are made of like plastic felt, I believe. It's kind of like that. It reminds me of that. And I've said this. I give myself credit because a lot of people were saying this too. So credit to everyone and also credit to me because I said this was a big playset when I covered chapter 1126. So you know what? Credit all around. Good call, everybody. And that's what they discovered. Yet, like, yeah, the mirror surrounding the playset is, I guess, transparent. I don't get this part of the chapter, honestly, because like they say it's transparent because they can see the fake Yggdrasil tree through the glass they broke. And I guess there's a joke here too about Sanji installing this in the ladies' room at the ship and Nami kicks her for it. Again, return to gags. I have not seen Nami kick Sanji in so long. Like, when is the last time that happened? I don't even remember. Oh my goodness. It might have happened at Ant Camp, but I can't recall. Yeah, and that's what Zoro says. Is this some sort of sick hobby? Yeah, this is a big hobby room. Also, I forgot to mention that Sanji mentions that he can't sense Robin anywhere. So the Lady Radar is a real power. And I also forgot to mention that Nami says that she can't sense any wind, which is eerie. So both very interesting atmospheric powers are on display here. Nami's ability to sense the weather is on display, and Sanji's Lady Radar is once again referred to as a real ability. That's not a gag. That's a real thing. That's crazy. But moving on. And that's when they encounter this huge snake. And now this is weird too, because they encounter this snake wearing a helmet similar to Dory, right? They encounter mice. They encounter a bird wearing a skull helm, which is pretty sick actually, because it's a big crow. And that's when we see the first glimpse of the person who owns this place. And they live in this huge house. So yeah, this is most likely a big hobby room for them. And they're wearing heels. Heels similar to Nami, with the upper part of the boot being fur. This makes me think this is a girl's playset. And our sun deity person, whom this seems to be, is a girl. I think so. And they're wearing a deer skull for a helmet with a shield on their back, and they're carrying a staff that looks like a sun, but it kind of looks like the flag that we were talking about earlier. So, I think the sun deity is just a nickname for this person because they are technically a deity to the people inside the playset. I love how they're drawn too. People were saying, which I don't think this is the case, people were saying that way back in the Kuma flashback, there was a person wearing a cow skull who was a part of the Holy Knights with Thiggle and Garland, right? And there was another random woman in armor. I don't think this relates to that at all. It does not. It's just most likely a young woman with her Elbathian playset, and she's playing dress up because she's probably like a dungeon master of sorts, and she likes to role play with all her little people that she's captured, which is why the chapter is called RPG, role-playing game. And yeah, they finally come to their playroom, their hobby room, and it's up in flames, and Luffy has gone gear 5th. See, that's the weird part. That's the weird part I was getting to, though. He goes into gear 5th. Now, remember when the confrontation popped off against the Seraphim, I recall, he went gear 4th. And then he went gear 4th against Kizaru. He did go gear 5th against Lucy, though. That was cool. But I think that's only because Lucy asked about it. But it's weird here. He goes immediately into gear 5th. And it looks like the cape remains. But yeah, his clothes change back to how they were originally, but it looks like he's still wearing the Viking cape from earlier. So that's weird that didn't change. But everything else changed. That's kind of weird. Because then Luffy winds up for a gum gum booming dome pistol and punches the snake. Which I think he punches right through the snake, or the snake becomes rubber as he's punching it. It's kind of hard to tell here. And the snake's name appears to be Halamungar. I cannot pronounce that, I'm sorry. Halamungar. And that's when we see the crew escaping. Chopper's at walk point. First, we see that. They find the lion cat from earlier. And as the sun deity is encroaching upon them. And we find that their shield also has a sun on it, the same sun that's on their staff. And here we see the return to another gag. We see Chopper communicating with the cat. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Giving me Crab from Alabasta vibes. Kind of like how back in the last chapter, them beating up the giant cat gave me, and a lot of people, Salamander from Alabasta vibes. Very cool. Big return to form. Love it. Also, Nami has nabbed a map of the whole diorama world. Thank you. Gag after classic. Gag after classic. Gag. I love. We got Nami stealing. We got Chopper talking to animals. That's a power we have not seen. I don't think we've seen that in like years. Like actual years. Oh my goodness. That's why I'm saying this is a great chapter, because we're returning to form from all these traits which seem to be like lost over the lore arc after lore arc we've had. I don't know why that has occurred, but I'm glad we're back in fighting shape now. This is amazing. Chopper talking to an animal has not occurred for years. Yes, very good. So yeah, their plan now is to ride the giant lion cat to the other side of the diorama. Which, yeah, I wonder where that leads. It may just lead to a window. They may just break out into the country proper. Because we don't see the rest of the crew this chapter, nor do we see the Sunny. So we have to find all of that later. Yeah, where is the Sunny at? I bet you the Sunny is like in a toy chest or something. I want to bet. Yeah, it probably is like in a toy chest or something silly. I can't wait to see that, though. That's going to be great. But yeah, no break next week. And I'm putting big money on the sun deity person being a woman. I think that's probably going to be the case. How are they? That's what's weird too. How are they chasing them through the playset? Then again, too, the diorama has a door on it. So maybe, yeah, maybe they could actually fit through the door. The door is big enough for them to go through, which is weird. The scale is wacky. I'm not sure how big this person is. It's hard to tell, because this person could be the size of an ancient giant. Because, I mean, there hasn't been too much size differentiation between normal giants. Then again, too, we have never seen an ancient giant and a regular giant mixed together. So they could be a past breed of one of those. That's a possibility. So yeah, excellent chapter. I love that we returned to a bunch of old gags. Super cool, super good. Also, what's weird is that the chart has to know what plastic is. Because that comes up when talking about the Lego blocks in this chapter, which is weird. But anyway, with that being said, give me your thoughts. No break next week. And tell your friends about Paula P. Works. Paula P. Works here. Coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1129 entitled Living Dolls. So first thing is first, shout out to old school YouTuber Teching 101. Because he correctly guessed the identity of the sun deity. It is the navigator of the new giant pirates who is named Road. This makes a lot of sense. It really does. Because it would make sense that a navigator would have a nerdy hobby like making this whole diorama. And it would make sense that a navigator would have a map of said diorama, because that's what they do. They map make. This is interesting too, because out of all the new giant pirates, it's only Road and Goldberg who didn't really have that much going on about them. So I'm glad that we got some more context about Road, because the next one that we have to learn about is Goldberg, who is the cook of the new giant pirates. we've learned about Gerd, who was Big Mom's friend, and we see her all during the Big Mom flashback. And then we learn about Stanson even further back, because Stanson is a member of the New Giant Pirates who is the shipwright, and he was actually the giant in prison with Rayleigh during the whole Saboti Archipelago arc. So that's cool. And of course, Hydrugen, the captain, we learned about during Dressrosa. So yeah, it's just Goldberg who is left. Also, and I've talked about Goldberg many times on the channel now, the interesting thing about Goldberg is that when we see him, he's carrying this weird shield. I have gone back and forth on whether that shield is a homie or a Zoan, but seeing as how Road has Iscat, and Iscat seems to be a Zoan user, I'm more so leaning towards the idea that Goldberg's shield is some sort of Zoan. Maybe it's a shield that ate a Zoan fruit. That's what we're going with now. I think that's more likely just based on what the crew has at their disposal already. So yeah, I'm thinking that Goldberg's shield is probably just a Zoan fruit user. But the funny thing about Road being the sun deity is that, and a lot of other people pointed this out too, Techie guessed it right on the head, but I heard a lot of people saying this, and I was completely in left field about it. But they wear the same footwear. They have the same type of shoes. I was convinced this was a woman because Nami is wearing similar shoes. So that's super interesting that, yeah, no, that was the big hit. The footwear was the hint. And the chapter really is just about the Straw Hats discovering what has happened to them. And we discover how Road obtained them. Apparently, Mugen, when the Straw Hats were sailing through the Sleeping Mist Belt, which is something I want to talk about real quick because it reminds me of two filler arcs that we had back in the day with One Piece. The Rainbow Mist arc and the Ocean's Dream arc. Because this is a mist in canon that, of course, makes you fall asleep when you sail through it. The Rainbow Mist arc was the filler arc in which the crew was trapped in this giant mist cloud that took them into a different dimension called Ape's Concert. So that's one part of it. And then the other part is the Ocean's Dream arc in which the crew encounter a seahorse who originally was the main antagonist of the One Piece video game, One Piece Ocean's Dream and One Piece Dragon Dream. And in the anime and the video game, the main antagonist is a seahorse. Now, the seahorse's name is Noko. Noko has the ability of the Namu Namu no Mi in the video games, but he just has this weird ability in the anime. It doesn't really specify whether he's a Devil Fruit user or not in the anime. This is interesting too, because so far, this is the only animal in the entirety of the canon, as far as I know, that has a Paramecia type Devil Fruit. So that's interesting in itself. But yeah, he makes you fall asleep. So yeah, that's why I say the mist that we have in the canon now feels like a combination between those two concepts. A giant mist formation in the ocean. Said mist formation makes you fall asleep. So that's pretty cool. So getting back to it from the top down, we have our 16th entry in the Yamato cover story in which Shinobu has gotten fat again. No! Yep, plumpy dumpy. Back again. Oh well. It is what it is. And Otama is training and Yamato is watching while atop Otama's dog as she's cheering her on. So that's pretty neat. Yamato has made it to Amagasa Village. Okay, so I don't know where this cover story is going. I don't. I guess this is to show her going all around Wano still. I guess that's just the point. But we haven't really seen anything big happen out of this. Hopefully after this, she does come back into the main story, because she said that is what she was going to do after pilgrimaging around Wano. But we shall see what Yamato's story is in the future. It would be very, very on brand for her to be in Elbaf, just saying, because we'll probably get into some giant genealogy, and I think Onis are related to ancient giants, but hey, we shall see in the future what happens. So, starting from the top, yes, the sun deity has found out that his pets have been obliterated and his little town is going into ruin. And the Straw Hats are making their escape on the back of Iscat. It's very funny that Luffy says he's going to try hard not to mess up his hard work because he admires the craftsmanship in the world the giant has made. But yeah, around this time, everyone comes to the realization as to what nature the whole room is. It's just a big playset for a giant. And here's some really cool character, or I guess power development from Nami, which answers a bit of issue that people have had with her going from island to island and not really jotting down how the world looks. Like, we don't see that from arc to arc, because as she found the map of this place in the last chapter, she has memorized the entirety of what the map is and simply has tossed it away. So this goes to show you that her memory is excellent, and she can probably remember how places look verbatim. That's why perhaps during their downtime, she just goes back and adds the sections that they just came from to her giant map of the world somewhere on the Sunny. At least that's what I think, because this goes to show you that her memory is excellent. I don't know if we've ever had a better or similar example to this in the past, but it's nice that we have it now. And this, at least to me, answers a bunch of concerns people have about her not making a map after every arc. So yeah, this answers it. She just remembers how places look. And with incredible speed too, because that was like, what, a few seconds and she remembered everything about the map that she just read. So yeah, the Yggdrasil tree is just against the back mirror of the diorama. So I wonder how he would enter normally, because the glass seems to be blocking the entryway to the diorama. So maybe he has to remove the glass, because later on we realize that the people trapped here do realize it's a diorama. And you know what makes him great? What makes Rogue great here? His giant sun staff is just a big butterfly net. That's incredible, dog. That's insane. That's incredible. I love that his staff is just a big butterfly net, because he puts the netting in it and it's about to capture the Straw Hats on top of Iscat, but then Zoro and Sanji just break through it with ease, which surprises him, which it shouldn't, given that he knows who these people are. But continuing, we finally get to see what the ear deity looked like. And yes, this was the rabbit that was cooked and eaten by Sanji, Zoro, and Luffy. And he kind of looks like the giant rabbits back in Drum. I know a lot of people have been comparing this Star of Elbaf to Drum. So this is another, I guess, feather in those people's hats that, yeah, we have another Drum parallel here as we have this carnivorous rabbit. I think they're called Lothians, if I remember correctly. Can't remember off the top of my head. I think they're called Lothians, the giant white rabbits of Drum Island. But yeah, Road is very surprised that they beat it, which I don't know why. We get to see that, yes, Road is a giant nerd. He's a big fat nerd, because he feels as though these events are playing out like an anime, right? His tiny miniature set. His diorama is a set for a grand adventure. Oh, he's enthralled by it. Look at him go. This is great. Elbaf is in safe hands. This is peak. This is so peak, because he just goes on and on about like, yea, verily, evil has spawned, heroes are being born in the world I created. This is so funny. He has a unique laugh. It's dee hee hee. So that's funny. I like that. He just keeps going on and on about how he loves that his minimalist little set with his living dolls are playing out like a grand fairy tale. He's so enthralled by the events. And this is also when we get to see how, yeah, the people are aware that they are locked in like a detention center of sorts, that this place isn't real. And they were all just playing into the act that Road was setting up. So I wonder where the diorama is. Is it on a ship or is it in Rhodes' house on Elbaf? That's the question now. I really want to see what happens about that. He says that Haruden recognizes you, but he doesn't. And I want to see what you do next. That's when Usopp shoots out a lethal green star skull bomb grass where he tries to penetrate the wall on the other side of the mirror. It does not break the wall, but it does shatter the mirror, which is impressive in itself because you have to think the mirror has to be super thick because we're talking about one-way giant glass. So it has to be at least several feet thick, which is an interesting concept. So yeah, no, his ammo is real. It's just that there's a brick wall, a giant brick wall, presumably made of real brick behind said mirror. So it's understandable why maybe one shot wasn't able to break the wall, but the fact they could even break the mirror is crazy. So continuing, the giant road calls out to the Straw Hats, each by name, with the honorific Tasso. Now, on Reddit, they were talking about how Tasso is in reference to how people refer to anime and manga characters affectionately. So maybe this is why he's doing that, because to him, in this setting, they are fictional characters playing into his game, even though they're the real Straw Hat crew. So that just kind of plays up his creepiness, which is great. But then we have a conversation, an actual conversation between Nami and Usopp, and them just talking about how the giant has pissed them off. And that's when Sanji turns around and says, "I'll never forgive him for dressing you up," which Zach and I were talking about that in the 46th episode of the Rose Gold podcast, how we were hoping this was a girl. Because if it were a guy, it would be super creepy because he has stripped Nami down naked and dressed her up like this. Oh my God, Road is a pervert, bruh. He's an absolute pervert. And that's when we get the flashback of Road. Because it was Mugen, the crow that they just beat up, who brought in the entire Thousand Sunny to Road. That's when people talk about like power scaling and stuff. I'm like, shut up. No, you're wrong. Because you don't even need pixel scaling and all that. The fact that there is a crow that can pick up something as large as 1,000 Sunny is crazy. You know how big that has to be? Oh my God, because the 1,000 Sunny is 183 feet and 9 inches in height. And in length, it is 127 feet long and 11 inches. So a crow is able to pick up a ship that big with ease and carry it to its master. Bruh, nah. No, I mean, just simple logic like that. That's huge, bruh. And this is not a special crow. This is some dude's pet. I mean, think about it, brother. And they just bit up this crow. Whatever. But yeah, okay. Road has the Straw Hat crew delivered to him. He's freaking out because he's like, what's the real Straw Hat crew, bruh? And that's when we get the confirmation of the sleeping Miss Belt. Because he sees it weird that the crew are fast asleep. That's how we know, too, that these haven't been hallucinations. Those might have just been our mistakes in the past. But like I believe in 1126 and 27 is where people point out how there were a lot of weird things going on. But yeah, so this is the mist that I was talking about earlier. And we know this isn't just because of the green fairy they had drunk prior. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the beverages that they had consumed in the previous chapters. Okay, and we get a small flashback of Rogue talking to his captain, getting angry that, yeah, they're pledging their allegiances to the Straw Hat crew because I guess he wanted to just be under Buggy, which this is a very interesting crossover of events because, yeah, this is the one crew that links the Straw Hats to Cross Guild. I find that very funny. He doesn't want to serve the Straw Hats because he feels that it is an affront to giant pride to serve itty bitty humans. That is when he affectionately fawns over Queen Namitaso, whom he has in his hands. My God, he's such a pervert. And he sprays the crew with more sleeping gas, which leads us back into the present, of which the clouds of the diorama, or I should say rather the sky, has been filled with a black cloud, which is Zeus, and he gets struck with a thunderbolt. Again, just saying again, just for reference, when talking about power scaling, we know how big this room has to be, right? And given this shot, Road has to fit within this room, okay? So this room is gigantic. Even for him, it's pretty big. Zeus is able to fill up the ceiling of this room and produce a lightning bolt big enough to engulf Road. Hey, look, Zeus is real, okay? Zeus is real. I just have to tell you these things so you remember and make a note of how big all of this is. This road is already bigger than Stein's castle, the castle that Nami was in at the start of all this in 1126. So, brother, the scale is huge. It's huge. Just keep that in mind when arguing with people online. Don't use pixel scaling, use scale, because One Piece is usually pretty good about scale. But with all that being said, we have to point out someone else who was absolutely correct. And that person is Polypede Watson, because I told you that Gear 4th was gone. I told you, because from the point in which Usopp and Nami are talking to the end of the chapter, Luffy is revving up for a little Gear 4th, right? He uses Gum Kong Gun to break through the wall of the diorama on the other side. So the brick wall that was behind the glass wall that was the fake sky. With that being said, I told you, and I'll put this up on screen right now. After 1127, I had said that Gear 4th was gone after we saw Luffy use Gum Elephant Stamp on Iscat, and he called it a Gear 4th move. I had said how weird that was, that one, an elephant attack was being attributed to a kicking move, and that it was an elephant attack under the arsenal of Gear 4th. So this means, like I said in that video, that the entirety of Gear 4th is now cannibalized by the base set. You will not see Bound Man, you will not see Snake Man, you will not see Tank Man, because from various times, from the start even in Dressrosa, we have seen that the main weakness of Gear 4th is that when he uses it to the fullest, it takes a toll on him. 10 minutes of haki recovery. So what better way to show the growth of Luffy than to show that things that were once strenuous for him to do can now be done with ease? That's what we're seeing here. A Kong gun is pulled out with ease. And when you think about it, just on the basis of what Gear 4th is, once again, when you have Gear 2nd with its speed, right, and you have Gear 3rd with its strength, the purpose of Gear 4th was to shore up the weaknesses of both of those maneuvers and combine their strengths to tag and do damage on Don Quixote do Flamingo. So why wouldn't you make that a part of the base set? Why would you have a maneuver that is lacking in one or more areas where you can have a competent set that combines the strength of the two? And really, you shouldn't be surprised, because in the post time skip, we have already established that it has now become a theme that in the future, things that Luffy has grown out of will just be cannibalized by the base set, because Gear 3rd and Gear 2nd in the post time skip moving forward don't exist in the same capacity as they did in the pre-time skip. In the pre-time skip, these were two separate transformations. These were two independent transformations, and in multiple forms of the franchise, they were treated as such. But in the post-time skip, they were just part of the main move set. They were part of base. So it would make sense that after Egghead, after we're getting more and more context on Gear 5th now into the end of the series is most likely going to be your go-to actual transformation. Because when you start to think about Gear Fourth, once again, is not much different from Gear Third and Gear Second. It has the same properties. It's air pumping. That's all it is. And it's interesting too, because people were mentioning during the time that Wano was going on that Luffy's inflation control had improved immensely. Because there would be times, like I remember during the time in which he got into the sumo match with the fat guy at the start of Wano, that he just went to Gear Third without much issue at all. And it was a hockey imbued Gear Third. So it were times like that in which people started to point out, like, yeah, his inflation control is really, really good now. And this just improves upon what has already been established in that. So I think when you start to think about Gear Fourth, all the abilities of Gear Fourth, Luffy just has normally. So it really doesn't make sense to keep that type of transformation around, especially when it has so many drawbacks. It has more that it takes from him than it adds to him. The only thing I would say that it has as an advantage, even over Gear Fifth, is that it has more defensive capabilities, because when he combines Haki with his rubber body, you get a very odd vulcanized rubber effect in which he can be pierced or cut, unless the piercing or cut is extremely strong. But yeah, casual cutting attacks just won't work. And even when they should work, when he puts a lot of pressure in one area, like with Tank Man, they even fail then. So yeah, it's been established that yes, Gear Fourth as a concept is extremely resistant to a classic weakness of Luffy, which is cutting. That's why in that video and many other videos before that one, I am still going to say that even though Bowman, Snake Man, and Tank Man are gone as we know them, it's very, very possible that in the future there will be a Gear Sixth, and that Gear Sixth will just be Gear Fifth, but with the form designations of Gear Fourth and with the defensive capabilities of Gear Fourth. So you'll have a Bowman, a Snake Man, and a Tank Man, but just in Gear Fifth. And I think that would probably be the next point of exhaustion for Luffy, because now the point of exhaustion for Luffy is Gear Fifth. But as we keep going further and further into the series, Gear Fifth will just be, I still think Gear Fifth will be the go-to transformation ability, as we've seen now in chapter 1128, that he'll just go into that. So as he keeps using it, the exhaustion will become less and less and less until it's non-existent. But then the new point of exhaustion will be this Gear Sixth, using Haki in an extreme way with Gear Fifth. Because we have seen over the years, once again, that as he gets used to things, he just becomes acclimated to them and they no longer exhaust him. And with that being said, Gear Fifth is already at a quicker turnaround time than any other gear before, especially considering Gear Third and Gear Fourth, because there have been times, especially during Onigashima, in which Luffy will just recover on the spot after using Gear Fifth. So it's already been shown that Gear Fifth doesn't have an exact science to its exhaustion. Kind of like Gear Second was. It wasn't really clear how much Gear Second exhausted Luffy when he was using it, like back in this lobby. So we're kind of in a similar situation here, but with a bit less stakes, which makes sense because there should be less stakes with his transformations as he grows. That's how you display growth throughout the narrative for this character. It only makes sense if you ask me. So in the future, I still think, like, say, the things that we saw Gear Fourth do, like all the Snake Man stuff, I think you'll start to see that in the base set as well, seeing as how we're seeing a basic attack from Bowman and Kong Gun here in this chapter. I think you'll see Culverin. I think you'll see Black Mamba, because all that is just him using the techniques of the six powers in accordance with his punches. Because if you noticed, when he uses all his Snake Man stuff, it's done in a similar way to how Lucy moves, because how Lucy would move in those zigzag patterns, he was combining Shave Soru with a Geppo or Moonwalk together to move around freely to fly. So that's what Luffy was doing in Snake Man. So I think with this new development, we've expanded the base set tenfold, because all of what he's done in Take Man, Bow Man, and Snake Man now is a part of the base set, which is super fire. And now, based on what we saw in 1127, everything from Gear 3rd and presumably Gear 2nd is now combined with Gear 4th, because we have an elephant stab now. So we may have a Hawk Kong gun or a bigger version of Red Rock. I don't know. Oh, that would be really cool. Like a Kong variant of Rock in which he sucks in his fist up and it's burning and it shoots out like a cannon. I think that's possible. I think that's very possible. So his moveset has expanded greatly. I may do another video about this because there's so much to talk about just based on this concept. But with that being said, yes, the Straw Hats are breaking out of the diorama, and that is it. Zeus has returned to being the Climate Tech, and the crew are on their way out. I can't wait to see what the B team is doing, and how has the B team developed? Who are we going to follow? Is there a C team? You know, I can't wait to see how this develops. Very good chapter. Road is a pervert. Shout out to Tekking. And with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works. Polypede Works here, coming to you once again with a momentous chapter of One Piece, chapter 1130, entitled The Accursed Prince. So, first we gotta talk about Yamato, as this is the 17th volume of her cover story in which she is sleeping with her baby cousin. If that escapes you, then in the Vivid cards, it mentions that she most likely is a Kurozumi because her mother is implied to be Higurashi Kurozumi, the old grandmother who had the clone fruit before Betham, Mr. 2. And in being a Kurozumi, that means she's related to Otama, whom she is taking a nap with here, which means, yes, she's sleeping with her baby cousin, presumably. And someone has yoinked Yasue's sword from her presence. So that's not good. I wonder if this is the same person that's causing all the kidnappings and whatnot, and who that person was who ran away from Yamato when they were trying to assault some woman way back. So we'll have to see what all of this is about in the future. A plot seems to be developing. I wonder, is there any significance in having her story run so close to Elbaf? I'm still running the belief that, seeing as how she is an Oni, Onis are probably related to ancient giants, and ancient giants are related to giants in some way. So that's gotta be the case, because it doesn't really make sense. Also, the title of this chapter is very interesting because Yamato herself is the Oni princess. So that in itself is a bit interesting. So moving on, we have our B team reacting to the news of the A team being missing. That being Frankie, Brooke, Jinbei, and Robin. Jinbei actually mentions that he had a Shark Network search for the missing Straw Hats, and now they are worn out. And this is in the midst of Frankie taking charge of the situation, reassuring everyone that things will pan out. It's interesting how this is framed, because we have Frankie taking charge, and one of his best fits in the manga. Are you seeing my boy in his cowboy hat? Oh my word, he's immaculate. But just saying to say that it's weird that we're hearing about this Shark Network now, because that has never existed. This is a totally new concept, unless I'm missing something. If I'm missing something, please tell me in the comments. I have never heard of Jinbei having a Shark Network, because he says that it sounds like he has something similar to those sea slug things that were around Totland in Big Mom's territory. That's what it's coming off as. But This is the first time I'm hearing about this. I've never heard about this before. And I'm a resident Jinbei expert, and I've never heard about this. So he's just throwing in a new power, I guess. This has never come into the narrative at all. I'm very perplexed by this thing. Maybe it'll be different in the official when that comes out. But that's really weird. And that seems like something that could have been useful at various other times, like being attacked by a mechanical shark and your devil fruit using crewmates falling into the water. I don't know. I don't know. Seems pretty weird to me, but we'll continue. So yes, the B team continue to sail towards Elbaf, and our A team makes it outside into Elbaf proper. And we assume that they're near the real version of Big Stein Castle, because this castle looks a lot like the one in Rhodes Block Country. So that's weird. And it's snowing, they're high up, and then there's a long drawbridge going up into the clouds, which I assume, based on what happens later in the chapter, that it connects to the Yggdrasil tree at some point, because we see this big looming silhouette in the background. So yeah, and everything's huge. Everyone's reacting. And then we see my boy Goldberg and Gerd. And Gerd has a funny little owl with her, whose name is Piper. And of course, Gerd is the doctor of the new giant warrior pirates, and Goldberg is the cook. He's the guy I talk about all the time with the weird shield, of whom he has on his back. It's really funny how like subtly Harry Potter pilled things have been, because we had that big color spread with the various Straw Hats on brooms and Harry Potter cosplay, and then the antagonist of the Block Country turned out to be Rodo, who has a scarf similar to the scarves that the House of Gryffindor wears. I just thought that was interesting. And now we have Gerd, who has an owl. And owls are very emblematic of Harry Potter. So all that is super duper interesting. I don't know if all this theming was intentional, but it's very funny now I notice it. So yeah, they're just talking about how Rhodes is a big creep and how he should be called the shame of Elbaf instead of Loki. And we get a laugh from Goldberg as D-ga-ga-ga-ga-ga-ga. Oh, I'm so happy we're at Elbaf. Excuse me. I'm very, very happy. But yes, he remarks that Rhodes wouldn't probably mind you calling him that. So that's funny. That's funny. But yeah, Gerd does not like Rhodes and thinks he's a big ugly creep, which he is. He's a big old pervert. So continuing, the Straw Hats are actually hiding from them, and there's reactions all around, both from Sanji and from Usopp, that yes, they have made it into the great land of Elbaf. And this is Sanji's first time seeing a giant woman. And yeah, I guess it would be. Because he's never seen a female giant before. Wow. That's something. That's interesting. But yeah, Nami stops Luffy from yelling, and they take cover and proceed across this giant drawbridge. And we have giant wolves in the forest below. However, the gaps are super big, but that's when Luffy feels a tingle in the air. He says that he felt this back in the Block Country as well. So I assume this tingle is coming from the person that we will see later, and maybe they're emitting like a whole bunch of hockey, or based on what I'm going to say in a little bit, maybe it's a dough fruit related thing, but we'll talk about that in a second. I'm more so leaning towards hockey, but yes, he simply jumps down from the bridge in typical Luffy fashion and goes to check it out, which leads us back to the crew of Team B on the giant ship. And that's when Broggy and Dory find out that they are being blamed for the Elbaf incident, and their bounties are now 1.8 billion, which makes sense for them because they've always been depicted to be absurdly powerful, even as far back as Little Garden, where they blew up that giant goldfish with a combined slash attack. And even then, you can kind of take their United Air Blast as a Rio Blast, I guess you could say, of armored hockey. If you want to be that way, I guess you could retroactively say that they were using hockey. It's very unclear how long Oda had hockey planned. So it's a nice thought to think that was hockey. I'm not going to deny or confirm that it was, but it does fit a bit more cleanly, especially when they took the liberty of splitting the Victoria Punk into with the same attack as they did on the giant goldfish. So I don't know. But yeah, 1.8 billion. And that's about right, because they are in the fold with a lot of kind of, I guess, Yonko Commander-esque characters, though I think on average they're rated a little bit higher, because I think the highest rated one is King, and I think King is 1.3. That's about right. Yeah, he's 1.3 billion. Yeah. So that's about right. So they're rated a little higher than him, which makes sense given their feats and their destructive power, and them being giants and them being super experienced. So I get that. That makes a lot of sense. And I guess Robin's talking about inflation here, because she says prices would have changed a great deal in the last 100 years, because one of their crewmates mentioned your last official bounties were 100 million, which we saw back in Little Garden, where Galdino, Mr. 3, pulls out this 100-year bounty poster, which who took that? I made a video about that a while ago. Who made that bounty poster? That's super weird. But yeah, it's big news that the giant warrior pirates are back in action. And there is when we get the Vivi mention, because you see, one, this is the first time that anybody on the Straw Hat crew mentions the Nika form specifically, because Robin says, hey, when Luffy turns into that freedom form of his, does he normally get a mark on his arm? And it's funny that she would notice this, and she vaguely recognizes this, because she's the only person who would, because everyone here joined way after Alabasta. It is only she who was on the ship when they were posing goodbye to Vivi as they were leaving Alabasta, showing the proof of authenticity on their arms to show that they weren't Betham, because, Betham could copy people back then. So, and that was a big security risk. So that was proof to show that they were legitimately part of the Straw Hat crew. So the reason why I guess she finds it familiar is because she probably saw them do that, maybe saw the mark vaguely, but since it was so long ago, she doesn't really remember. So it's very funny that the framing was done in this way to show that, yeah, nobody here would recognize the mark because nobody here is from the Alabasta crew. I find that very funny. Also, there's a very good exchange between Lilith and Frankie where she's laughing at her own demise, even though it's not her, but it's her because she's Vegapunk. Very confusing. But yeah, Frankie's like, shut up, we fought tooth and nail to save you. oh man, that's great. I always wanted to see him interact with her. This is great. I love that. I love that he's pissed. It's so funny. But yeah, I think this is Vivi trying to get a message out to Luffy and the others who know the significance of the X. So we're probably going to get, especially seeing as how this was published in Morgan's paper. Let me just point that out, if it wasn't obvious enough. This was published in Morgan's paper, and Vivi is with Morgan's. So Vivi requested to have this edit put in the paper. So this has to be conveying a message. And also, most likely, the only way Morgans would get her to shut up about posting lies about Luffy in the paper. So yeah, she probably requested this being put in as an edit, as a bargaining chip for publishing the lie in the first place. Another interesting point is that, yeah, giants can't read normal newspapers because I believe it's Brokey who mentions that the print is too tiny to read. So that itself is very funny. But yeah, boys, I think she's on the table, boys, for joining. I'm telling you, that Vice Captain video is looking real good now, boys. Go watch that. Whoo, lad. I'm very excited. At the implications of this. I'm very excited. But yeah, no one has a clue what this means. Oh, I love that. Such smart writing. Following that, we find out that it was actually Harudigan. I can never pronounce his name. Haruden. we find out that Haruden actually was going to go rescue the Straw Hats initially, but Brocky and Dory have seniority and they got chosen to go instead. And he apparently is the son of the king. And I believe the king being mentioned here is King Harold, because they mention a King Harold being killed for a devil fruit that this Loki figure wanted. A legendary devil fruit that this Loki figure wanted, which is already giving big Marshall D. Teach vibes, big Blackbeard vibes. And it's implied that Jinbei knows the name of Loki, which that's what pisses me off about him, honestly. Because like, how do you know that? How is it even being alluded to that you know that? How many rumors do you know by being on the seas? That's infuriating to me. It's always has been, but moving on. Yeah, the giant warriors are just lamenting how this Loki person is crazy. And yeah, he did kill his father, King Harold, in order to get this fruit. We're going to talk about the fruit in a second. But yeah, Luffy finds this mad lad, this huge boy. And the spoilers said he's a mix of Kaido and Don Quixote Doflamingo, and nobody was lying. This is the sickest dude. He looks nothing like the silhouette at all. Where were the horns? The horns were nowhere, though the horns remind me of Marvel's Loki, because Marvel's Loki has the horned helmet in which the horns are forward facing but curving back. So big shout out to Panini at Writing Panini on Twitter/X, because they pointed out that on the topic of Loki and the helmet itself, we have a very interesting coincidence. In the MCU show Loki, Marvel's Loki is described as variant L1130. This is very interesting because our Loki in One Piece makes his official appearance in this chapter, which is chapter 1130. So I found that super interesting. So big shout out to them for pointing this out. But additionally, going back to the helmet once more, this is something I noticed upon looking at Loki's helmet for the first time. If you know about video games, you most likely have heard of Skyrim. Skyrim is made by Bethesda Studios. It is the 5th edition of the Elder Scrolls series of games. In these games, you can make deals or contracts with these entities called Daedra. They're kind of like deity figures of some sort in the mythos of the Elder Scrolls. In Skyrim, we have a lot of Norse mythology-like things going on. So this is very of the topic. But one particular item that caught my memory upon looking at Loki's helmet was the item known as the Mask of Clavicus Vile. Clavicus Vile is a bit of a trickster deity in the Daedra canon. So it's very interesting that he gives you this helmet that looks like Marvel Loki's helmet, especially in this particular game, because the helm does change from game to game. Like in the previous game, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, it looks completely different. So that I found very interesting. And it increases your speechcraft. So it allows you, I guess, to lie to people, you could say. So that in itself, I just found super interesting and wanted to point that out. But to continue. But what's interesting, and I wonder if this is a thing, because I remember Jorl Fallbeard, I believe his name is, when he got beat up by Big Mom and he died, right? They repaired his horned helmet. And I guess in giant culture, or even like maybe Oni culture as well, a horn being severed or a horn being cut might relate to the individual in question, rather, being shamed, because maybe horns in giant culture and other like in media cultures are a sign of pride. So in this case, with the horn being bandaged here on the helmet, it could represent how he is shamed because the horn had been damaged at some point and now it's repaired. Because I remember on Fallbeer's grave site, the horn helmet was repaired with a similar bandage. I'm going to try to find that panel, but yes. So this could be because of that. Also, as a bit of a sidebar, when Kaido is defeated by Luffy, Luffy does break his horn as well, and Kaido is described as an Oni. So that too could give credence to the whole bit about a broken horn means for a loss of pride or a sign of defeat. But to continue, bruh has bandages over his eyes. He's got a skull belt with a crown on it. His tongue is sticking out, doing the full Doflamingo here. And he says to Luffy, state your name. And then Luffy says the typical, I'm Luffy, the man who is going to be king of the pirates. And he's like, king. And Luffy says, where is his place? Who are you? And that's where he proudly proclaims, on the side of a massive and beautiful spread of Yggdrasil, and how big and massive it is, and how it covers the entire country of Elbaf. Also, interesting thing to point out, much like Onigashima, there's this random sword here. Because in Onigashima, there was this random giant sword just in it, and it's in a bunch of shots. And here we have a random giant sword just in the tree. And from the looks of it, people live on the first tier of the tree because it's like a tier covered in like these huge branches, and then we have the very uppermost part of the tree. So I'm guessing people live on both tiers, perhaps, because a tree, you can be inside of a tree as well. So maybe there are people living on top of the leaves of the tree, because there's a building here as well, which is crazy. But maybe people live inside the tree as well. We don't know, but this is an amazing setup already. I can't wait to see what secrets the tree hides. It's so cool. And he says, this is Warland, the mighty kingdom of Elbaf. They say it is the birthplace of war. I am the sun deity who will bring about the end of the world. Loki. And Elbaf gets a final official spelling. It is Elbaph. So we can't make the Fable puns anymore, but it is kind of like Fable because PH makes the F sound. So we haven't lost it, but it's not as obvious, to be fair. On top of that, this is what Doflamingo wanted, by the way. He too wanted to end the world. And he says this to Bellamy in Dressrosa. So that's very interesting. Now, given the Norse context of Elbaf, it probably means that Loki wants Ragnarok, which in itself is very interesting because in Norse mythology, Loki too is bound up until Ragnarok happens. Whom also is bound up is his son Fenrir, which is a giant wolf, which I wonder if that somehow plays back into the whole Yamato cover story, because Yamato is a wolf. She has the mythical wolf fruit that causes her to be a conjurer of ice, which is a thing that occurs during Ragnarok, or at least it's the precursor to Ragnarok starting, Fimbulvinter. So that's interesting. That could be something. We'll have to wait and see. We're at the end of the chapter. Of course, you know, there is a 2-week break ahead of us, okay? Now, in terms of the goosebump thing that Luffy mentions as he goes off to find Loki, who is chained to Yggdrasil from the looks of it, this could be one, him sensing his hockey, which is fair, but seeing as how hockey isn't mentioned in this chapter, if Loki has eaten a devil fruit, and this is an idea I've been workshopping for a long time, and I want to make a video about this because I think this could be true. I've thought for a very long time that there could be a counterpart to Luffy. And this counterpart to Luffy, or rather Luffy's fruit, the mythical human fruit model Nika, maybe there is a devil variant of this. Maybe there is an evil counterpart to Nika, a deity of darkness, a deity that doesn't wish for liberation, but wishes only for destruction. Maybe that fruit is the antithesis to Nika, and perhaps this fruit is the one who is mistaken for Nika, but isn't actually Nika. Maybe this is the legendary devil fruit that the giant is talking about that Loki presumably killed his father over. We don't know, because it's very interesting how similar of a backstory that is to Blackbeard getting the darkness fruit. And I've often thought, if Blackbeard were to ever get a Zoan fruit, it would be something that is the antithesis to Nika, Nika's canonical rival. Because that's something we've never actually gone into with Zoan fruits. It's a thing with Logias, and it's a thing with Paramecias. This whole idea of hierarchy and one fruit being the better of another fruit, like Mr. One versus Baby Five. Baby Five having the arms fruit is initially more powerful than Mr. One's dice fruit, or the ton fruit being heavier than the kilo fruit. And then we have situations in the Logia faction in which you have the snow fruit being weaker than the chili fruit or the ice fruit. And then, of course, the famous one that kind of established hierarchy in the first place, the flame fruit being inferior to the magma fruit. So I think at some point, maybe it doesn't exist for like prey and predator animals in the Zoan classification, but maybe it exists in the mythical subtype of Zoans, meaning like if you have a story in which there is a hero and a villain, these two fruits automatically have a relationship and they automatically have beef. Maybe that's how it plays out. Maybe it's not really specified for the normal animals like your regular Zoans and your ancient Zoans, but it's specified specifically for the mythical Zoans because they themselves are not real. They are the manifestations of stories and myths that people make up. So in the stories and myths, you could say every figure has the potential to be important in one way or another. Therefore, they all have the opportunity to become devil fruits. And in becoming devil fruits, they kind of have to play the role that brought them into existence in the first place. So if Nika has an antithesis, the one who is holding the Nika fruit would automatically be drawn to his rival, to his antithesis, presumably. Now, this is all spitballing, but that's what I think. Because it's weird that the reaction from Luffy is described as goosebumps, which is a very unique reaction that doesn't seem like a hockey reaction. It may still be, and this could all just be nonsense, but that just seems really deliberate to me. And then we go into a whole situation about a legendary devil fruit being explained before Loki's proper introduction. You know, that's just very interesting indeed. But with that being said, excellent chapter, fantastic chapter. I enjoyed this. I love Elbath. The impossibilities are endless, bruh. Woo! So, with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works. Polypede Works here, coming to you once again with One Piece, chapter 1131, entitled Loki of the Underworld. I think One Piece is in prime condition this chapter. I think Elbath is going to make up for all the lulls of Egghead. I think this is immaculate chapter. We are so back, boys. I can't tell you how much we are back. Oh, I'm excited. Woo! I'm excited. There is a fire that has been lit in me that I have not seen since Whole Cake Island. Whoa! Because everything is here yet again, but we'll get into it. But to start us off, we have the 18th volume of Yamato's cover story, in which Yamato, Komichio, Speed, which is nice to see Speed, and Otama are rushing after the person who stole Yasue's katana. Now, once again, the dog jokes continue, because now we have a dog mounting another dog as they're chasing after the assailant. So that's funny. That came out wrong too. Didn't mean it like that. I mean riding as an actual riding mount, not the other way. Oh no. Oh no, we're in the mud already. No. But seriously. I'm glad to see Speed, otherwise known as Porcella, again. Isn't it weird that she just named her mother? Because Otama sees Speed as a mother and she just named her mother Porcella. Does anyone else find that odd? Oh no. Her dough fruit's kind of dangerous. I don't know about that, brother. Ooh wee. That's a bad fit. Anyway, Speed is in her Wano garb now. So she got a little bit of a design change, which is pretty cute. I like that she kept her little goggles though. So yeah, they're running after the person who stole Yasue's katana, and we'll see more in volume 19. But I do think this is putting her more on the map, Yamato, to become a Straw Hat, because this reminds me of Jinbei's long cover story. However, this one is interesting because it's right after the arc we just left a little while ago, whereas Jinbei was just sort of like bumbling around. So, take that for what you'll take it for. But yeah, I think this has more precedent over that one. And I think the results will be more immediate, because even after the cover story, we had that big gap of Whole Cake Island, and then the majority of Wano up until the Onigashima section started, right? And that's when Jinbei actually joined the crew. So yeah, I think this will be more of an immediate turnaround, especially seeing as how we're in Elbaf, Yamato's an Oni. It's been suggested slightly that Onis could have something to do with ancient giants, whom are giants, and we are in the country of giants. So most likely ancient giants are probably going to come up here in some way, shape, or form. But continuing on with the chapter, Luffy is excited that he's finally reached Elbaf, and he is ignoring Loki as he's exclaiming how cool it is. And then Loki interrupts him and says, "Quiet you! I am Loki, the sun deity, the man of this land, whose centuries of tales foretell of. Don't open your mouth without permission, human." Loki is so cool. For no reason. But I do like we enter the chapter with him being ignored by Luffy. That's very good. And then we get a little Oda box for Loki. Loki, with his name romanized. Accursed Prince of Elbaf. Loki. The world government's special bounty, which a special bounty, what does that mean? I don't know what special bounty means. Is it that they're putting a bounty on his head as long as he stays in Elbaf, but if he ever comes out of the country of Elbaf, that bounty goes into effect? Maybe. I guess that bounty is a precaution of some sort. I'm not sure. But it's 2.6 billion berries. Woo, lad. That's big. 2.6 billion. So that's bigger than Brocky and Dory, who are both 1.8 billion. Man. Jeez. Thinking about that's crazy. Because that's up there, actually. That's higher than any first commander of any Yonko crew so far. Wow. Other than Mihawk, if we're counting him as one. But yeah, wow, that's impressive. That's pretty cool. So yeah, 2.6 billion berries. Goodness. Okay. And then he goes and asking, "Why do you think I'm locked up?" And apparently he's been locked up for 6 years, which 6 is one of those Luffy numbers. 5 and 6. Go Moo. But okay, he proclaims himself as the most powerful being in Elbaf. And this is where we find out that the tree that's in the country of Elbaf, the country of war, as Luffy explains to us, is the Atom Treasure Tree. So what the Sunny is made out of came from this tree. So that means there are some black market dealings on Elbaf, because somehow, some way, people managed to sneak bark from this tree out of the country to sell it on the black market. So that's very interesting that, well, the Sunny is at the origin of his birthplace, you might as well say. That's cool. And we also find that the chains that bound Loki to said tree are made of sea stone, which weaken him and of course cut off his dough fruit abilities. And that is when Loki says, "I need to ask you something, Lobby." And Luffy corrects him, saying it's Luffy. Is this the first time that someone does to Luffy what he constantly does to other people? Because it was a bit, a gag, like he did with Bonnie, called her Boogie or something, or Booger, that he would get people's names wrong. So is this the first time someone does that to him? Other times people don't call him Luffy, they'll call him Straw Hat or Lucy, but they're doing it in earnest and not to mock him. This seems like mockery. So that is interesting. That's cool. I don't think that's ever happened before. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that's ever happened before. But yeah, continuing. Loki wants Luffy to unlock him and set him free, and in exchange, he'll wipe out any pirate crew that he wishes. And I like low-key believe low-key. That was unintentional. But no, I think he could actually do that. With a 2.6 billion berry bounty, yeah, he could do that. But continuing, he says that the key to his chains should be somewhere in the village, which will probably be a point of the B plots story, I'm guessing. But we'll have to see. And this is where we find that the place that Loki is locked up is called the Underworld, or the Realm of the Dead, which is the lower level of Elbaf. And he says only criminals are sent here, and it serves both as a prison and an execution ground. By calling it a prison, you know what this reminds me of? The freezing hell of Impel Down. And it kind of goes back to Brook because he has cryokinetic powers, ice powers, and those are said to come from the underworld. So the underworld is synonymous with hell, but it's also synonymous with freezing cold. So that sets up some very interesting parallels. So one, Brook is not lying, apparently, given all the parallels that we've seen in the story so far. And two, Impel Down's freezing hell could have been modeled off of this level of Elbaf. Because two, we have these big evergreen trees, it's constantly snowing, and then a little later we see that there is a giant wolf. So yeah, wolves are inhabiting the area. He goes on to say that you'll find a ton of bones of giants and humans here. And according to the mythology of Elbaf, this place is known as the primordial world, or the first world, perhaps a strong world, you might say. And we see a lot of giant animals here, which reminds Luffy of his time back during training. Because these two are Loki's friends, like the giant animals of Luffy's training island were his friends. You even get a very similar set here. You've got I think there was a gorilla back on that island as well, but you have a gorilla here, a giant snake, a woolly mammoth, which I think this is the first time that we're seeing a real woolly mammoth in One Piece. That's not Delph related, because of course Jack of the Beast Pirates has the elephant model mammoth, right? Which is an ancient Zoan. But yeah, this being the primordial world, it kind of makes sense that you're seeing sort of like old school animals here. And later on, we get another little treat, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, you got a polar bear, you have a big gorilla, you have a giant snake, and a woolly mammoth. So that's pretty neat, pretty neat. And we are now introduced to Loki's cronies, who call them stinky, shabbling corpses. He calls his boys stinky, shambling corpses. And they're like, boss, come on now, that's harsh. This is funny. This is so funny without any intent of it being funny. And they look like normal humans. So apparently, just from Luffy being around these guys, he's automatically tamed all of them. And I love that the bear looks like he's offering him a little pot of honey. This is great. I told you this was peak One Piece. He tamed all the beasts immediately. And that's where Loki exclaims, wait a second, who's this little guy? Because he's like shocked that this small pirate was able to tame all these beasts who were Loki's sworn friends so immediately. This is great. And it's very cute. I like it a lot. I like this wolf because the wolf has a tattered mane. And I wonder if this wolf is a relative of the wolves that you find in the freezing hell, because they have a similar shape. But the wolf has a mane very similar of animals that you find in Wano. So I don't know. And it's the only one with a scar of some sort, which is also interesting. They have a lot of character to these animals, I gotta say. But yeah, continuing. Loki mentions Shanks, and he calls Shanks a coward, which, if you know my agenda, I think Shanks is a big fan. So this is unbelievably cool for for Loki to say this to me. This is so cool, bro. Oh, Loki Ben's character. Yo, Luffy gets mad immediately and goes into a Gear 4th bound man. Now, what's so interesting about him revving up for a Kong gun or a King Kong gun or whatever this attack is that this is the most complete looking Gear 4th we've seen since entering Elbaf. Though I don't think this is a complete Gear 4th. Because from the shot, even though it's kind of hard to see, it looks like it's just his upper body. Because you see his little legs swinging. So I don't think, even though Gear 4th Bound Man is very top heavy, something tells me, especially with it wearing shoes, which may or may not be a point, because I think he's worn shoes before, like in Egghead. But I think this is still on the same path that we've been seeing the entirety of Elbaf, that he just compartmentalizes Gear 4th now. And as I've been saying in many videos, he has cannibalized it into the base set. So it's only affecting his upper body, though it is the most complete variant that we've seen so far. We even see the cloud sash that Gear 4th Bound Man and the rest of the variants of Gear 4th are known for having. However, yeah, I think this is just going into his upper body. It's not a full Gear 4th. And what also makes me think this too is that after he strikes and Loki gets shook and says, whoa, 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 that was just a joke, which is very funny within itself. We see a de-escalation of Gear 4th, which I think this is a manga first. I don't actually think we've ever seen a full, like, frame by frame, in a way, de-escalation of Gear 4th. He either goes into it and then cancels it, or goes into it and is canceled out of it due to exhaustion. But he never, like, cancels it himself in this way where we see an actual deflation of Gear 4th. So that's what makes me think he didn't go into it fully and he has complete and utter control over it, and it's still being cannibalized by the base set because of the fact that his fist is still hockey up as he's deflating himself. We've never seen that before. And his eyes still have the hockey rings around them too. We've never seen this in-between state. Never. I don't recall ever seeing it. Ever, never, never, ever. So that in itself is extremely interesting and never before seen. But by that show of strength, he's got Loki's animal friend shook. You see the wolf sweating. You see the polar bear sweating. The mammoth is shook. Big open eyes. I love it. This is so much character on the page, bruh. Yes. Oh, I'm elated. But anyway, Luffy just warns him, don't say things like that, not even as a joke. And then he goes on to say, I can't move, you moron. I'm going to kill that jerk as soon as I'm out of these chains. If you can't move, don't piss me off, Luffy retorts. The next time you say something like that, I'll smash you into this tree. And the wolf is so shook. And I think this is Loki who says, cut out, you idiot. Anyway, why did Shanks come here? Why did he come to see you? Did he have some business here? Is he still here in Elbaf? And Luffy's asking all these questions. And then Loki, ever the trickster, says, of course I'm not telling you for free. Why is this so cool? And I have to mention too, even though his helmet does look like Brogy's helmet, it kind of looks like a steel straw hat. So I wonder, are we in a Katakuri-like situation in which we're getting another character who's a bit of a mirror to Luffy himself? I wonder. I really do wonder. Because Katakuri was kind of a smart, tactical Luffy too, but he had his vices, which I'm willing to bet Loki has his vices as well. This is a fascinating character. Fascinating. But then we go to the rest of Team A, and they're running across the bridge, in which the bridge is shaking as Road is running down the bridge as he is on fire due to Zeus's thunderbolt. Road is a constant stream of entertainment. I love it. Also, we see Chopper being ridden by Nami in Walk Point. I can't tell you how rare this is, because he's never ever in walk point, and it's very rare that anyone is using him as a proper mount, let alone Nami, because I think this only happens like, wow, what, back in Water 7, when I think Iceberg's mansion was on fire or something. So it's a really rare occasion is what I'm getting to. So this is cool, very cool. And yeah, so we see that Goldberg, Gerd, and Gerd's funny owl are chasing after Road, while Goldberg has the Straw Hat ship, the Going Sunny, or the Thousand Sunny, I should say, in hand. Now, interesting bit about this one. Giants are humongous because Goldberg is holding up the Sunny as if it were a toy. That's incredible. That's incredible. Considering how big the Sunny is, that's incredible. I keep forgetting the size difference between a giant and the Sunny. Incredible, insane, the scale. And also, the owl is about half the size of the Sunny, which is also something to note because that in itself is incredible. Lastly, the shield on Goldberg's back seems to be asleep. So I was right in saying that the shield is a living object. We don't know if it's a homie or a Zoan. It could be either. But I was right, bruh. I was right. I knew it was a living thing. Way back when we got the whole interlude about the new giant warrior pirates in that cover story, I knew that the shield was alive. I knew it. I've done videos on it. So now we get confirmation that yes, by it sleeping, it's alive in some manner. Don't know if it's a homie or a Zoan. Could be a Zoan. I'm leaning more towards Zoan. And I think I've said this before because Road has Iscat, and Iscat is a house cat with a lion Zoan fruit, which that will probably come out in the next SBS. Whichever SBS that incorporates the last few chapters. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Or the next Vivicard set, because that could also uncover Elbaf characters. Though we may have to wait a little while for that since we just got like a Vivicard drop after another Vivicard drop. So I don't think there's going to be another Vivicard drop in the near future. But yeah, whenever that happens and whenever the SBS happens, we're probably going to get a breakdown on what's up with that cat. So based on Road having that cat and him being in the same crew as Goldberg and seeing how Gerd also has a funny little animal companion, it's very likely that they're all Zoans. Because I could believe too that the owl is a Zoan. Though it could be a normal owl, but it's likely that that too could be a Zoan. Maybe the owl is a hospital bag of some sort, a doctor's bag, because we know that Gerd is the doctor of the new giant warrior pirates. So maybe, yeah, the owl is some sort of Zoan object thing as well. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm putting a bet on that. So with that being said, I wonder if the last two members, Haruden and Streisand, I think his name is, we'll get to him in a second, but I wonder if they have funny little animal buddies too. We have to wait and see. But yeah, that's when Usopp says when Zoro's about to cut them all down that they may be friends of Brogy and Dory, but he refers to them as the Masters. And then they're going full speed ahead to the Elbaf village, passing the new giant warrior pirates, thinking that the people who are essentially of the same group as them are enemies because no one knows each other yet. Because yeah, this mostly was a part, except for Zoro, but Zoro doesn't remember anything. So yeah, they've never met them before. The only person who has met Haruden is Zoro, and Haruden is not here because he was at the toast, right? I remember that. He was at the toast, and Usopp knows him too, that's right. Usopp and Zoro know Haruden, but they don't know the rest of the crew because they've never met them before. So it makes sense they would perceive them as possible enemies. Speaking of the boy, we have Haruden and Stanson. Excuse me, I said his name was Streisand. It's Stanson. We have the captain, Haruden, and the shipwright Stanson, and they have taken out a huge dinosaur. Now, this dinosaur, correct me if I'm wrong, it's making its first canonical appearance because this is not its first time in the franchise. This was a dinosaur from the movie Strong World. It's called an Ethosaurus from looking it up, actually. And there were concept arts for it from Strong World. And I believe it's Zoro and Usopp that encountered this thing. It's a big blue dinosaur with reindeer antlers. And it has a big mane, much like the thing we're seeing here. So yes, the Ethosaurus from Strong World is canon for real, for real. Fascinating. And it's mistaken for a moose. I don't know if that's a mistranslation or not. That's incredible, though. But to interject, there are some more animals from the movie Strong World and its concept art that are actually becoming canonical animals in the series in this chapter, because the wolf that was hanging around with Loki is called a kill rabby, which is a wolf rabbit that appears in concept art for Strong World. Next, that giant gorilla is Del Kong, and we have concept art for it from Strong World, and it actually appears in a movie in Strong World. Both of these guys also appear in Snow, so that too is very interesting. Continuing on, actually, the mammoth is from Strong World as well, and he actually makes a canonical appearance also in Snow, but he is called Mammoth Des, and we have concept art for him as well, and he's being ridden by Chopper. So that too, very cool, very excellent. Now, when we get to the polar bear, I am not sure. I'm really not sure. However, there is a bear called Terraguma, and from the concept art, it looks like there could be a polar bear variant. I'm not sure, because in the movie, it looks like more like a take on a Japanese black bear. It's got these big long arms. It looks like it has actual hands, which makes sense because the bear that we see in chapter 1131 is holding a small pot of honey. So its arms are emphasized, and it does look like it has claw hands. So yeah, this could be a polar bear giant version of the Terraguma. That makes a lot of sense to me, especially seeing as how if these concept arts hold up and the less detailed ones are, say, a polar bear variant. I don't know, because we have a striped variant of the one that we see in the movie. Then we have almost like a zebra-esque version from the concept art. So not too sure, but then we have concepts of the bear in which he has no patterns at all, which looks most like the bear that we see in 1131. So yeah, I don't know. I think too, though, that has to be from, for all intents and purposes, Terraguma. Now, the only one that has no movie appearances, as far as I know, is the snake in the back. He seems to be completely original to Elbaf, as far as I know. But yeah, a lot of Strong World references in this one chapter, and there are more to come. But let's continue. Apparently, this is native to only this part of Elbaf, so they seem to be in the same place as Loki is, the underworld. So it's interesting because, yeah, it's Haruden who says, after all, they don't have these up in the forest above. So I wonder if the Ethosaurus is native to Elbaf, or did it fall off of like Shiki's territory? I don't know. But yeah, we also meet this thing in a cold place in Strong World. So yeah, no, it's pretty on brand for what it is and what it's supposed to be, which is pretty fascinating. I'm interested to see how far this is going to go in the future thinking about it, because man, only a fat lion and that weird giraffe thing were canon because they appeared in chapter 0. So yeah, now we got another Strong World animal canonical to One Piece. I don't know, bruh. Strong World on top, still the most canonical movie in the One Piece franchise. So I'm impressed. I don't know what to say. I'm impressed. But yeah, we got a breakdown of the new Giant Warrior Pirates, and the Stanson and Harugen are singing "We are the new pirates, the giant warriors of Elbaf," as they're carrying off the Ethosaurus, thinking that it will make great meat for the Straw Hat crew, as they know they are arriving to Elbaf because originally they were going to go save them, but Broggy and Dory have seniority, so they went to go save them instead, so they know they're coming. So yeah, breaking it down, they are a generation after Broggy and Dory, And they go as follows. Howard as the captain. Goldberg, the big guy with the shield, as the cook. Gurr, Big Mom's childhood friend, is the doctor. Stanson, the giant 2 years ago who was in the Saboti Archipelago auction house with Rayleigh, is the shipwright. And the former sun deity and the the owner of Iskat, Road, as the navigator. And that's when we get a little breakdown of Luffy's relationship with Harugen and the whole bit that happened in Dressrosa. Elbaf coastal waters. We return to the ship of Brogy and Dory, and we have now regained Robin's bangs, bro. We're so in! Oda has realized the truth that Robin's at her best with bangs, baby! Yes, sir! Also, I find it very touching that she entrusted Brooke to cut her hair. That's very cute. That's very adorable. That is the character building that I'm here for. That is off of the back of the Black Maria fight when they became closer with one another based off their past trauma. Immaculate. This is the character writing I want. I am elated. I am enthralled with joy. This is great. This is fantastic. Also, the sea beast that's riding along the ship is incredibly long. What is that? That has to be some sort of sea king, but it is huge. You know what? Wait, that's from Strong World 2. Oh my God, no! That's from Strong World. That's the thing that got eaten up by the ants. Yeah. This was in the scene. I think it was the opening scene of Strong World in which it attacked Frankie, Robin, and Brooke, but was eaten by the ants called the Guntayari, and it's called a Bakuzam or a chomp shark, which is very, very cool because this scene also depicts a team in which Brooke, Frankie, and Robin are a part of. Oh, this is sick, bruh. Woo! Oh, I told you we were back, baby. I told you. This is sick. This is sick. This is sick. Okay, so Brooke cuts Robin's hair, and then we are introduced to a skull joke because Brooke says, though I don't have a heart to race, because he said his heart was racing after cutting a woman's hair, as this was his first time doing so. This is incredible. And then we have Vegapunk Lilith going, ha ha ha, you don't even have a heart? That's anti-science. Thank you. You know what was so weird about Egghead, and it kind of pissed me off, to be honest? We had 7 scientists, right? Smartest people in the world, all meeting Brooke. No one comments on how weird he is, that he's a living skeleton. Thank you, Lilith. Lilith is quickly proving to be the best Vegapunk, period. And then we have Bonnie here reacting to Robin's haircut, saying, you look adorable, Robin. She's joining the crew. Don't at me. She's joining the crew. This is the character interaction I was waiting for. She's joining the crew. I don't want to hear it. And she's in her little baby form. It's adorable. It's adorable. I love it. I love it. It's perfect. Nope. Join the crew. Based. Very cool. I love it. And then we see the girl. Her bangs are back. She thanks Brooke. Brooke is so glad he did a great job. And this is almost a full page spread of it. Or not a full page spread, but it's a big panel. I love it. It's great. It's great. And that's when Frankie is crying at the thought of Robin meeting up with Saul again. And that's what Brocky comments on it, that that's the hair you had with Saul. And that's the hairstyle that Ormond and Kashi remember. So yeah, Brooke got it right. The fact that Frankie is responding to Robin's haircut in this way, man, SBSs can get the boot. I'm telling you, there ain't no way that ain't her husband. And I don't ship, but there ain't no way. There ain't no way. I'm sorry, I can't. Ain't no way. Ain't no way Frankie and Robin don't have that bond. I'm sorry, it don't make sense. Jinbei don't even say anything important. It suits you perfectly. Nice work, Brooke. That's all he says. Frankie goes into full description of what it means for Robin, the memories that it brings back to him upon seeing the haircut, because he's seen her both as a child in the Wanna poster when he was young. And of course, he spends the whole dual arc of Water 7 / Ennis Lobby with her. So yeah, he would have an emotional tie to this haircut. He's talking like a husband who sees the haircut that he's met his wife with for the first time in years. I know I'm rambling, but it just reads like that, bruh. It reads like that. It's so good. It's so good. But continuing, the island mist has cleared and the Straw Hat Team B are seeing the Elbath Island in its full glory for the first time. And I assume Brock and Dory are saying, we'll toast as soon as we reach port. And somewhere, disaster strikes. As someone says, Saul has fell and he's not moving. He has fallen and he's not moving. What indeed has happened to Saul? Excellent chapter. Great chapter. Best chapter, maybe of the year. I don't know. It's close. The close for vibes, the close for feels, the closest for feels, because man, it feels like everything was in this chapter. You got the comedy, you got the skull. When was the last time we heard a skull joke? How long has it been? Brother, how long has it been, bruh? Immaculate, simply immaculate. I loved every bit. Robin has returned to her pre-time skip glory. It is a great time to be a One Piece fan. I love it. I absolutely love it. But with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Paula Pede. What's it?